Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of this epic Mormon Stories podcast interview with Gay and Dre, with Heather.
You can't rebrand us,
Heather
John.
Gay. All right, what do you guys introduce yourself as? Go ahead and do it.
It's rather the trilogy now. We're Lord of the Rings.
This is Heather Gay and Dre Nord, also known as two of the many stars of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, broadcasted on BravoTV. Currently, episode 6 has been released. It is a hit nationally, internationally, and we've already done 2 sit-downs with Heather and Dre, and we've talked about all sorts of stuff. You're going to just have to go back and watch both of the first 2 episodes. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things. We are going to be talking about Heather's, we ended last time with Heather's marriage kind of being on the outs, kind of moving towards separation or divorce. And we also talked about how that led to Heather and Dre being able to start their amazing business, Beauty Lab. And we talked a lot about their business and kind of what they do and beauty and humans and life and that sort of thing. Today, we're going to be talking about Heather's faith journey and her life post-separation and divorce. We're going to be talking also about Dre's life, her faith journey, and her second marriage. And we are going to be talking then about how they sort of went from being successful businesswomen to the emergence of this opportunity to be on The Real Housewives. And then we're just going to talk about what it's like to be on Real Housewives. We're not going to be doing plot spoilers or getting into personalities, but we're going to ask a lot of questions just about what it's like, how it works, and whatever they want to share. So I'm Dr. John DeLynn. I'm so thrilled to have you guys back. Thank you for coming back for part 3. You guys are gluttons for punishment.
We have so much to say.
Yeah. Back by popular demand.
Absolutely.
We didn't realize we had so much to say or that
I
it was
know.
interesting to anybody.
Well,
It's
I
been
feel
big.
Like, yeah, and I feel like it's just been therapy for us.
Yeah.
Like, we should probably pay you.
No, it's good.
Listen.
Your presence is edifying and uplifting. It's true.
No, it for sure has been cathartic and therapeutic for me to sit here and kind of own it. You know, that's the hardest part for me is because I haven't articulated it or defined it for myself. So for you to sit here and ask me questions, it's great for me to like dig deep and kind of wade through it, you know?
What's the reaction been so far? Just real quick. Anything you want to share about the reactions? Friends, family, fans, any of that?
Just the kindred spirits that are out there, you know?
Yeah.
I would never have had the courage to reach out to someone and say, I'm feeling the same way as you. I would have been like, you're going to hell. You know, I wouldn't have thought that. I just think there's a lot of love in the universe and we are more alike than we are different. And it's not just unique to Mormonism or unique to, you know, white privileged girls in East Bench holiday, you know, it's pain is universal, like you've said. And in sharing our stories and kind of breaking the veneer, there's connection to be made. And those connections mean everything to me. And so to everybody that's reached out, like I would just say thank you. And it's healing and it feels good. I'm not going to lie, you know. It makes the trolls just like, you just kind of like flick the trolls like the ants on the sandwich, you know, you just flick those off because the picnic is worth it. And that's only because people are willing to share and like be honest and take time out of their day to like express appreciation and love. And that's like important. And I'm not going to forget that, you know, I'm going to try to do that more.
Totally. And I'm excited because like, of course, we're all watching Real Housewives and it's so fun to see Heather and like her personality and she's so smart and funny. And there's a lot of heart, I think, that is shown there, but I'm thrilled that like people are getting more of an in-depth view on who Heather is as a person and as a Mormon and as a mother and a woman, which, you know, of course, they can't show all of that on Real Housewives. And so the feedback has been awesome. I think people have been somewhat surprised but also like just really excited. Like I saw a lot of comments like, oh, I didn't expect much from Real Housewives, but like, wow, this was real and touching. So that's been good.
And I would say in that same note, like if you were to put any housewife, I think there's only like 100 real housewives in the world, you know, based on the definition by international television. And if I guarantee if you put any of them on this chair, the stories would be.
There's depth in every story.
There is joy and pain and fear and
Intelligence
aspirations and
talent
in every single one, beyond and beyond and beyond. And I am continually reminded of the universality of our human experience, you know? And these are just women that are willing to have a special skill set, which is, you know, a lack of inhibition and also a strange death wish or confidence, maybe, because people I think people assume a lot of the time that I'm insecure, but like I've never had a problem with confidence, and in a way that's been a burden for me because I'm just like, what do you mean you don't like me? You know, like
who wouldn't like me?
Yeah, and I think that type of like that that ability to just show up in the world is something that I admire about everyone that goes on TV.
Yeah.
Because I love reality television and I love people just doing cringe-worthy, embarrassing things on TV because it exposes the humanity in all of us.
Like episode 6, for example.
Like I would say episode 6. Episode 6, you know, I would tell everyone to tune in and watch the phoenix rising from the ashes, if you will.
Yeah. Well, two things I just want to say is that I think your friendship is really charming and fun and powerful. And I love both of you in terms of how you play off each other, how you support each other, how you've succeeded together, and how you show up for each other. So that's also super powerful for me. It's very inspiring.
That is we don't talk about that as much, like finding each other.
Yeah.
It's like that scene in Sex and the City where they're like, maybe we're each other's soulmates and we can just use men for fun. You know, isn't it Charlotte that says that? Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And then also the ex-Mormon crowd's can be a rough crowd. They could be rough on me, on other people. And I was so thrilled to see on the ex-Mormon Reddit, shout out to the ex-Mormon Reddit, how, you know, there was a thread where they're just like, yeah, I wasn't going to watch because Real Housewives, why would we ever watch? But I started watching the interview and they were sucked in and said it was super meaningful and rich. And so when my peeps are loving, I love it. You know, I was going to interview you guys no matter what, and I knew it was going to be a good interview. I didn't know if my peeps would give it a chance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And those that have been richly rewarded.
They just write us off because we're so beautiful.
Yeah, it's like, no, they can't be brilliant and beautiful. No one's got that much.
We're not brilliant. We're just talking through it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't watch or read ex-Mormon Reddit because of the word ex-Mormon.
Yet.
I do.
But I do know someone that probably does. But I will. You know, I need to break away from my fears of I won't say the dark side, of the other side of the line too, because there's such a community there that I've felt the support from. Absolutely. So
we're freaking amazing, Heather.
Shout out to your people.
You'll see.
To your people.
I've been saying this for a while. Like, Heather, just let your ex-Mormons love you. Like, we've got you. Don't
Heather,
worry about what's happening.
It's time to let your ex-Mormon freak flag fly.
I'm not an ex-Mormon.
I know that's the problem, but we still love you and support you.
I know. And right now I would say I'm a non-practicing Mormon, that changes depending on my crowd. Had I known that Gerardo's mom was an Orthodox Mormon, I would have switched off and I would have because I have dear Mormon friends and they bring out the Mormon in me, and I can fall out of that canoe as easily as I can fall out of the canoe into total debauchery.
Yeah.
And that schism is something that I'm navigating,
Me too. I still haven't tried alcohol. I told you guys that.
I know who's your first drink's going to be with Dre.
All right. Okay, so let's go back. We ended with a very heart-wrenching story about your brother's death by suicide last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of at the precipice of when Real Housewives was going to be really emerging. And I think that was a really important way to talk about Beauty Lab and the foundation. Don't leave, right? The foundation, which was, you got to go back and watch all that. And if you stopped on episode 2 without going all the way to the end, you need to go back because it's powerful.
Yeah.
Having said that, we're going to rewind and we're going to go back to when Beauty Lab, did I say Love Lab? When Beauty Lab was just a twinkle in Heather's eye. We're going to go to Heather's, the unraveling of Heather's marriage. And then we're going to talk about the evolution and the unraveling of Heather's faith, because all of that, as you mentioned, had to happen to then make Beauty Lab and then Real Housewives possible.
Absolutely.
So should we go back? Tell us where you want to begin.
Well, I mean, I think probably if I were to say like the most pivotal time in my life was right when we separated, my husband and I separated.
And you just kind of said, I think you should go. You kind of, you called him out on his threat.
Yeah.
And he took it.
But I never, ever thought divorce was an option. I didn't think divorce was an option.
And let's be frank, in marriages, with Margie and I, probably in at least hundreds, if not 1,000 times, one of us said, I'm leaving, or one of us said, you should just go. We had to work through a lot. So, I'm just saying, for me, that's like, oh yeah, that's like every month of my marriage before 2012,
Yeah, I thought this was just a fight.
Yeah.
Just a fight. And it was the fight where I was going to get some ground.
Yeah.
And be like, guess what? This is the new me.
Yeah.
And I like me.
Yeah.
And people like me.
Yeah.
And you need to like me. And I really think
as a businesswoman mom, right? As a powerful, empowered human.
As a partner. Like, I will like you. I'm pretending to like you. And just pretend to like me. Just pretend. And maybe if you fake it long enough, you really will.
Yeah.
Because I think I had to get out from under that auspice of, I just wanted to be liked.
Yeah.
And I was feeling it in every single area of my life, except for with my spouse. And it was because I had probably married him under a different, definition of who I was really becoming. But I digress. I really thought, like, I know that we kind of said, like, I wanted it to end and I wanted to get out. And that's like the deepest, darkest recesses of the corners of my heart. That was never going to surface. That was never going to be said. I was willing to absolutely just put my head down and be miserable and be married. Marriage was the important thing to me, not because of my own pride. A little bit that played in for sure, but for my children, for my family, for the family line. I look back at my ancestors. Do I think that Sarah Binns, the third wife of Henry William Chipman, that had to raise not only her 11 children, but the 9 children of the second wife that passed, do I think that she woke up feeling fulfilled and joyful and, excited about a possible enterprise? No. She woke up, she lit the fire, she made the meals, she cooked the food, she had the babies, and she towed the line. And I think that that is beautiful and noble. And I respect and love that. And I don't have anything but admiration for those women. And I wanted to be that woman. So there was a sense of martyrdom in it all. But when it came down to it, I couldn't align who I thought I could be with who I actually was. And who I actually was making my husband miserable. And I dug in and I thought that we would work it out, and we didn't. And that reality took me a long time to accept. And so I did not accept that we were separated. I did not accept that our marriage was...
But he did move out, right?
Yeah, and he moved out.
Yeah.
He moved out. We had a therapy session, and my dad had met with him and took me to lunch and kind of said, hey, listen, I've talked to Billy, and I think we worked some stuff out, and I think you're going to be fine. And my dad's was very close to him, because that was kind of my dad's skill set. He was a great man, and he could relate to people and talk through it in terms of practicality. And he just kind of said, he's going to work more. He's going to take some, he's going to be out of the house more. He's going to find more fulfillment outside of the home. And so that'll de-stress the tension there. And if you're willing to work through it. And I was like, I've never not been willing to work through it. But like, I can see how from my dad's perspective, he thought I was just like, but I was in some ways, but not at the expense of my marriage. If this is really coming down to it, then like, what do I need to do? What do I need to say? And so I'd been humbled, and like all of the obstinance I had was going away because I thought we were reaching kind of a point of progression. And we went and met with a social worker that was an active member in our ward. And I think for the first time, Billy was really honest about how he felt about being married to me. And he's like, I don't want to be married to her, and I'm not here to work through this. And I just sat there, and I was Relief Society president with this sweet, 40 years as a social worker in LDS Social Services, private practice, sat in his basement, like facing him. And we had our own independent relationship. And then I'm standing here in front of him with my husband who's saying, oh, sir, I'm not here for you to tell us some tips to make a date night and prayer. Like I'm here so that you make sure that she knows that she can't poison the children against me, and I can see the kids whenever I want. And she's not going to, like he basically said, I'm only here so that you tell her not to use the children as a tactic. And I was just like, I was gutted. I was embarrassed, and I was gutted but I still didn't believe him. I don't know if that makes sense. I just didn't believe, like I understand like heightened emotions and being like, I hate you, get out, but we're married for time and all eternity. It's the new and everlasting covenant. It's the only reason we're on earth. So we're going to have to work through this, I might have to give up photography, and you might have to pretend to like me. That's kind of what I was thinking that was on the table, but it wasn't for him. And here I thought we were going to kind of put a Band-Aid on things and like hug and start fresh. And my parents had stayed at my house with the children, and that was not the case. So we came home, and I was just like, I would just say I was numb. I was just like numb and embarrassed. And you know how you kind of start to scramble? Like, how are we going to, like, how do I turn this into a fun anecdote? Like it was really huge. And I came home, and
So you separated as Relief Society president.
oh yeah, I remained as Relief Society.
Elite holiday.
I remained as Relief Society president for a year and a half after.
What?
Yeah.
How do you do that with your bishop? And
I was grateful for it. He asked me, and I wanted to stay.
okay, because
was
it gives
so
you meaning
grateful.
and it keeps you focused, it keeps you busy.
Yeah, and also, I still didn't believe the separation was real. I did not believe it was
That was
ending in
temporary.
divorce. I did
Yeah.
not. It wasn't 3 years of litigation or 4 years of litigation and back and forth. It was like I was a conscientious objector, and I kind of chained myself to the tree of marriage and said, and just like put up the blinders, like, I don't know what you're doing or whatever, but I'm here. And when you come to your senses, you'll return.
Did you ever like beg him to come back? Please come back.
Never.
No, okay. No,
Never.
that's not you, yeah.
Never.
But you still hoped he would. Wanted him. No, yeah.
Desire was not on the menu.
Right. Yeah.
There was do or do not.
Yeah.
And the do is you stay married.
Come back because
And you hope
we're married.
you come back because you were married.
Yeah.
You may not like me, but I know you love your kids. I know you love the gospel. I know you love God.
Temple marriage.
And I am the smallest part of that scheme. And it wasn't to him. And so I say now kind of like piously, like, I'm grateful. But if I am grateful. I am grateful that I'm grateful that I don't know what I'm grateful for. I guess grateful is the wrong word. I
For the
have
years
some
you did
respect
it
for
together?
it. I have some respect that he was just like, no, he
Oh,
didn't.
you're grateful that he walked away because
I don't know what I am. I'm not grateful. I just have respect for someone that is willing to blow up their life for not something different or better. He's not remarried. ever cheat on me. He never broke any of the covenants he's made. He never broke the word of wisdom. He never didn't pay tithing. He's never not walked the line. And I say those things because I think I had much more deep conviction about the truthfulness of the gospel and my commitment to it, which would be evident by the fact that I'd be willing to be married under any circumstances, because to me that was what being Mormon was. I mean, how many esteemed Mormons do you know that are single? How many general authorities are single?
Bishops, Relief Society presidents.
How many?
Rare.
Yeah, name them. How many people on the general board of Relief Society are never married or single or divorced? Yeah. It is a disservice for us to say that marriage is not the pinnacle of our doctrine. Yeah. Not only our culture, our doctrine. Yeah. And if I'm not married on this life, what do people say? What is the thing that we say to people that don't get married on earth?
That they'll find someone on the other side.
They'll have to die. Yeah. It's better to hold to your covenants, be a true and believing Mormon, and then die. And then you'll meet someone that will love you for who you are. And then you can have all these blessings, but be pious and, here on earth, don't sell your birthright for a bowl of pottage. And that's kind of how I looked at it. Like my birthright was this eternal line, this, covenant. And the pottage was happiness.
I want to ask you guys both, I think we really need to dig into one issue here, because midlife crises and divorce are not uniquely Mormon phenomenon. Plenty of people in the world get divorced. The Mormon divorce rate is pretty much the same as the non-Mormon divorce rate, as I understand it. And I think the midlife crisis, where marriages often really struggle and sometimes blow up, I think it's a nearly universal phenomenon, if not a Western universal phenomenon. And I get it all the time. But there's this dynamic that happens in Mormonism and probably a lot of other really Orthodox religions, where you get married super young, your engagement's a few months, you start having kids immediately, you have a lot of kids, and you never really get a chance to know, are you close? Are you connected? Are you soulmates? Are you compatible, emotionally compatible, sexually compatible, psychologically compatible? Because like we talked about last time, any marriage, according to Spencer W. Kimball or whatever, any two people can thrive if they live the gospel. And so you get into this middle age where everybody has this kind of unraveling, where it's like, wow, life wasn't what I thought. I'm not happy like I thought I'd be living the gospel. Our marriage is not good. Margie and I went through this, and do we want to stay together? And many divorce, and then many stay in these wretched marriages thinking I have to stay for the gospel. In other words, the gospel is not a plan of happiness. The gospel becomes a plan of misery. And I've got to stay for the kids, which means I'm going to model misery or fake happiness to my children. And it's kind of like it's like two awful choices. Blow it all up, become gospel irrelevant, become a social pariah, or stay in something that makes you want to die as you're faking it. Maybe you have to self-medicate in super unhealthy ways just to stay alive, and then teach your children to be in a fake, unhealthy, toxic relationship. I mean, those are, for many people, and then some people work it out, but I know very, very few people who have stayed in their first marriage and have a super healthy, happy relationship. That's really rare. Like, I would say less than 5%.
Really?
That's been my experience. It's anecdotal. Now, I want you guys to comment on all that. Let's spend a good 5-10 minutes on that, because isn't that significant? Like, staying for the kids is its own thing, right?
I feel really strongly about that, actually, and I don't know that Heather would agree, but I've been married twice, divorced twice. It sucks, but I think what you said about like what you're modeling for your children, that truly was the deal breaker for me the second time around. And a lot of it is because I read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, and she talks about that.
And she liked this podcast episode.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
I'm sorry, but she called us her cheetah sisters.
Heather, her cheetah. She
I
just
missed that. Where
kindly
did she say
includes
that?
me in on that. But
On a post I did a quote of hers where she said, "We are all pioneers." And I was just like, she's Mormon. Glennon's Mormon. That's what I used to do. When someone said pioneer or said something that was just in line with the gospel, I'd be like, they're Mormon. They don't know it. Let me meet them and have dinner. Then I'll convert them. Like I have, as an adult, I was a huge missionary. And my neighbors got baptized. Like I was never not a missionary because I loved the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose it, but check out Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed.
She's a Mormon in hiding.
It's like Brene Brown. It's like as big as Brene Brown's books. It's a huge deal. It's all about having a second life of joy and health and healing.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But she does. I remember reading the chapter that she talked about her kids and how she realized that her daughter wanted to do the same hairdo as her. And that she was like, okay, everything that we're doing, we are teaching our children, and our daughters are wanting to do the same hair as us. They want to like the same music as us. They want to have the same types of friendships as us, which also means that they want to have the same, romantic or intimate relationships as we do. And so here I've stayed for the kids, but is this what I would really want for my daughter? Because I am teaching them that it is okay to be in a marriage that doesn't have connection or love, or that has boundaries being crossed, or whatever your story is. That is that really what we want to teach our kids? And that for me, in my round two, even though like wonderful person, a lot of really good things, do I want my kids to have a partnership that is not connected and that models what I believe are unhealthy gender roles? No, I don't want that for them. And yes, it's going to be damaging and hard to have divorced parents. That's how it is. But what is worse? And kind of like what you said, like it seems like two really bad choices. But
that's only with the gospel doctrine laid on top of it. Right?
Sure. But I mean, but even still, I mean, it is tough on kids to go back and forth. I think I have divorced parents and as an adult, and that's hard. It's hard for me for this Christmas of like, who am I going to go with, my mom or my dad? And I love both. And it's complicated and difficult, but just like I'm so glad that my dad remarried someone who loves him and who he has an amazing connection with and who does his thing. I'm so glad that he found that and that he's not married to someone that he has a toxic relationship with. And I'm happy for my mom that she is who she is. And even though they're not together anymore, and that might make it complicated for holidays, but I really strongly believe that kids know when their parents are unhappy. I knew, and it's my job as a mom to be the best version of myself. And if I am spending all of my days numbing myself and forcing myself to live a life that I totally hate, there is no way that they're not going to pick up on that.
And then you're modeling unhealth, right?
Right.
You're modeling sadness.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Heather, what are you thinking?
Like, I mean, I disagree.
With
I mean, I
Dre?
don't, like, I understand. I mean, of course, everything she says is Bible truth, but I don't know where this comes from me, but I think my mom was an incredibly dynamic entrepreneur. I mean, she always had side gigs. She always was an artist. She was always having little home enterprise and businesses, and always just industrious. That how she just always did. And like, I as a child was absolutely oblivious to her happiness. And I'm sure, when I asked her one time, she's like, well, sometimes I would cry in the bathtub,
Mm-hmm.
and turn the water on so no one could hear me. And like, as an adult, I was like, I'm so glad that my mom didn't walk around crying, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or burdening me with the vicissitudes of life, or whatever. Like, I think, and when I heard you describing like these two options, I still immediately go to the middle option, which is, maybe I'm a martyr, but there's nobility in martyrdom to me. There's nobility in these women that like birthed babies on the plains, and buried them in 6 inches of snow and marched on. And that's who I wanted to be. So bring it on. Bring on the fact that I have to just wake up and, and find the joy. Like, that's on me. This is my life. This is the gospel. This is what I signed up for. And I have a roof over my head, and I have food in my fridge, and I have beautiful, healthy children. And I want for nothing. And figure it out, like, it's in every one of us to like be kind and be happy. And I feel like I almost want to say, like, irrelevant of our circumstances, I felt burdened to figure it out. And that is both empowering, but also deeply damaging to a relationship where you're supposed to be not codependent. I don't know. You're the doctor, like not codependent, but symbiotic.
Yeah.
Well, but Heather, like, so just like a C+ marriage where you're just punching the clock, like maybe that's good enough for you, but that's not good enough for me. And I don't think you would say that that's good enough for your daughters. I don't think you would want that for your daughters.
No, I would never want that for my daughters.
Real connection, support, and somebody who sees them. And so maybe you were okay staying in a marriage, and maybe you would have stayed for time and all eternity, Heather. Obviously you would have. But, and maybe that's good enough for you. I don't think it's good enough for you. I don't think it's good enough for anyone, but maybe that was good enough for you. I don't think that you would say that that's what you would want for your daughters. I know how you feel about your daughters.
100%
You would never want that for them.
I would never want that for them, but I wanted to be that martyr that did it for them.
Yeah.
Because that would give them all of the benefits of life in the gospel and in terms of a foundation of home and whatever. And I'm just like, those are where my emotions are. Cognitively, I know that is
sure
messed up. And I know that has to stem from just the value system that I have been entrenched in. But I also think that, like, I used to have this, I don't want to digress too much, but I used to be passionate about reading obituaries. And I would read, like they went through all these things and 70 years of marriage and, and I would read the ones where you could tell that there had been a divorce, but they didn't mention it. You know what I mean? All the kind of euphemisms of how we cover up really horrible, painful, growing periods of our life. And I was deeply committed to the big rocks in the vase, the marriage, the temple marriage.
That's a seminary metaphor.
Yeah. And that's what I was about, the temple marriage, the having children, the, never divorcing, the children, being all of these things. You know what I mean? I was really committed to that. And it didn't matter to me what happened under the surface, because that was just a reflection of my own self-mastery.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's the pioneer way. You push the
Just
handcart.
like my pioneer ancestors. Now I'm trying to blaze a new trail, but it's hard for me because I've even had the experience of researching my genealogy and reading this and just feeling so proud and also a lot of shame, like, oh, they were so good and they did these things that were so hard. I mean, our ancestors probably, they accepted the gospel in England. They had careers and family and friends, and they sold everything and got on ships and came here and dedicated their lives and came across the plains, took directives, built cities, built towns, and gave 10% of their income to the Lord and 90% of their time to build the kingdom of God on earth and to bring about, the standard of truth, no unhallowed hand. Like, I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I felt great dignity in being a part of that. And that was one of my core values. So being seen, it was I was, trading it all for a greater good. and for the big stones in the vase, for the overarching storyline. But then as I started to look at different veins of my ancestry, I would see like little subnotes from other people saying, this is actually untrue. They died by suicide, you know? Mm-hmm. And this is untrue. Like, and I would just be like,
lots of divorces. There were a lot of divorces in the 18 and 1900s. Yeah.
And just people that like left. And then I would start to see these aberrations and be like, you go, girl. You know, walked away after like a week of marriage and said, oh, hell no, you know? But before that, I would see these side notes from people that and I'd be like, what a jerk. Like, just let us have our story. Why do you have to write in there, this is untrue? They died by suicide and were miserable in their lives, you know? And I just thought, listen, we've got the family tree and it's beautiful. We don't need you to come in with your little hatchet and break away at it. Like, who cares? Like, just keep the
picture.
Keep it up. Yeah. Because there's beauty in it. And I don't think any of us would discount, like when we see a couple that's been married 70 years or 60 years and they are having their silver anniversary, we know that there have been days when she said, great, move out, you know, great. Take your whore and put her somewhere, you know, take her to a different country or whatever, you know, like we know that it's not bliss, but we're more evolved now and we talk about things. And I think we're, you know, more attuned to our emotional needs, but we respect that. We respect longevity in marriage. We respect we respect the 50 golden anniversary. And we don't sit and say, what's been the hardest thing or what's the secret? And you know, what do they say? Forgive each other, laugh. Yeah. The truth is, what's the hardest thing? It's bearing down.
Not giving up.
And not accepting an alternative. But I don't think that's noble. I'm not saying like you should, I mean.
No, I've had friends say, I could never do what you're doing to your family. I could never do that. And I you know, and of course I feel horrible about it. Of course, if I could make myself feel a different way, I absolutely would. And it has not been without trying. And so I'm not noble. I'm not one of those strong people that can just dig in and persevere and bury the baby 6 inches in snow. I can't.
Or yourself.
Yeah, I won't. So.
And saying those things, I would never want Dre to do that. Yeah. So what I put on myself and what I think I'm supposed to do, I would never want her to do that for 1 second. And I am so clearly aware of the fact that you are 1/10 of who you're going to be. And every day that you walk away from what's keeping you in that box and in the zoo, Glennon, our patron saint. We belong to the Church of Glennon Doyle of Latter-day Saints. I know that you absolutely, and so I would encourage you, you know, so I guess that's what's so effed up is that what I expect of myself, I do not want for my daughters. I do not want it for my best friends, but I somehow was programmed to believe that is where my needs come in the grand scale of the Robinson, Chipman, Hinchcliffe, McLean line.
I expect more for you. You know that. And you deserve it. And I think your pioneer ancestors would be freaking proud of you, honestly. You told me about some of those ancestors that you looked into that were like badass power women. No, like go figure. Of course you descended from them.
Like their blood runs through my veins and like in a different way now. And this is a new, like as trite as it is, my tagline for Housewives is just like my pioneer ancestors, I'm blazing a new trail. And that is, you know, as cheesy as people want to make it, like I have to look at it that way. I have to look at it as like I'm going against what generations have done before me in order to create a better, brighter future for myself and my posterity. and specifically for my daughters, because they are badass, beautiful women. And I was hampering them with things that they didn't, that would keep them safe. I have to be clear, it's a very safe routine. You used a word last time we were talking, I can't think of what it was, it's a planned life.
Mm-hmm.
And there is so much security in the plan, in a program. It's the program.
Structure, yeah.
And in having routine and expectations and standards and all those things, like all of that I think is totally beautiful and cool. But there's also this crazy thing about just like blowing it up. Like think of what our Elsha and Ashley, our oldest daughters, think of what they see for their futures that they would not have seen had we just towed the line.
I know.
Think
I
of
think
all
about
our
that all the time.
employees.
Yeah.
Our employees see these two women who love what they do, who are so happy, and who literally they see us as having like the world on a string. And we're slowly realizing that we do. Slowly.
Yeah.
But when we have those moments where we like look at each other and we're like, damn,
Is this our life?
is this what like men feel like all the time? This is amazing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I think we're learning that it's possible to do that and also be great moms and be committed to our children and creating great lives for them and being committed to ourselves and being the best versions of ourselves and whatever that looks like, whether that's being Mormon or being spiritual or just being self-aware, you know?
Totally. It's in a way, it's like the best moms we could be, because if I was cooking just like solid, delicious, basic oatmeal for my kids, now I'm adding like acid, heat, salt, fat, like all these things. And it's like, I'm going to blow your mind at what is out there. And you may say, that's a lot. And I prefer oatmeal and intermittent fasting, but until they've tasted or see that it is on the menu, they can't make those informed choices. And that is a burden on kids. Absolutely. But God help me. I want them to be burdened with that and not the other way around. You really love us, don't you, John?
I do. Margie's first. You guys are second and third.
Yes. I mean, you're like, what are you thinking? I'm so curious.
Well, first of all, I love that we're covering this topic. I have I have a son and then 3 other children. And I want them to see possibility. I have a daughter who's an entrepreneur. I have another child that's getting a PhD in developmental psychology. I have another daughter that wants to go to med school. And these are just not, if they had been raised Orthodox Mormons, they may have thought that theoretically this is possible, but that's not the way. I watched Mandalorian. This is not the way. This is the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not the Mormon way. So I'm super inspired that you guys are talking about this and modeling it, because we've done our women in society, not just in Mormonism, but in society, we've done our women a huge disservice by limiting their potential and how they see their own potential and then what they're actually able to accomplish. And that's Margie's a stay-at-home mom, and she's loved it and she's been fantastic at it. And that's not to put that down. It's just to say, let's lift everything else up.
Sure.
And let's let women have whatever is of the heart's content. So I'm so grateful for the past 10, 15 minutes and for the whole series. And I want to say 2 quick things, if that's okay.
Yeah. So
it's not as simple as live in an awful, terrible marriage or destroy and blow up your family. The truth is there is, and I'm only saying this because I spent 6 years getting a PhD in clinical and counseling psychology. I counsel couples weekly, and I've been counseling thousands of couples for the past 20 years. And the truth is that if you are compatible, if there's a base level of physical and emotional and psychological compatibility where you share the right values, and then you can heal from all your childhood and teenage traumas and adult traumas, and you have to see a therapist or a coach to heal, and I had to do it, Margie had to do it. And then if you can learn the basics of healthy emotional intimacy, then you can do it. And I believe every marriage is worth fighting for and giving it your all. So I just want to be clear. There is that middle ground. If you're in a marriage that sucks, don't give up on it. If you can develop that compatibility, if you can heal from your individual traumas, if you're both willing to do that work, and then you can learn the basics of healthy emotional intimacy, which nobody knows, not just in Mormonism, but in society. If you can learn those things, you can turn it around. Margie and I in 2012 were totally about to split, and we thought the kids would be better. We fought through it. We did our healing. We sought help, and now we just love our lives together. So yes, it's not that it can't happen, but you got to do that work. And unfortunately, Mormonism does not teach people how to have a healthy, thriving marriage. Mormonism teaches people how to be good Mormons. And if you're both loving being good Mormons, or if you just have that endurance, or if you're willing to sacrifice yourself to the point of misery and or death, maybe you can stick it out and survive. But there's a lot of depressed Mormon women. There's a lot of addicted Mormon women and men to prescription drugs and to other addictions. There's a lot of darkness within Mormon marriages and Mormon adulthood. Addictions, bad behaviors, hatred, loathing, and that's not good for anybody. And that takes me to the other thing I was thinking, which is, if the Mormon church is true, if Joseph Smith really talked to God, if God is Elohim, as the Mormons teach, and if God has his plural wives, as the Mormons teach, and if only Mormon marriages count in the celestial kingdom, and if our destiny is to become gods and goddesses in heaven, yeah, stick it out, suck it up, and if you have to live in a toxic, awful, terrible marriage until you just die, it's kind of like what we tell our gay brothers and sisters. Yeah, this life is going to suck for you. You're never going to know love. You're never going to know fulfillment. But that's what the next life's for. So this life is to be miserable and suck it up and to endure, because the next life is great. If that narrative is true, then yeah, Heather, your way is the way. But if Joseph Smith was a charlatan, if he just made that stuff up, if the Book of Mormon was just fiction, and if that temple marriage is no different than any other marriage, and if that priesthood authority is empty, then people are sacrificing the only time that they're guaranteed to have, which is the time of this life. They're giving up what's most precious for something that's fake, and that's something that was made up by a New York country yokel. And so it better be true if people are going to give what's for sure, which is their time on this life. It better be true, right? And if it's not true, then it's one of the biggest, and Gordon, I'm quoting Gordon B. Hinckley now. If the Mormon church isn't true, it's one of the biggest frauds ever perpetrated on mankind. That was Gordon B. Hinckley, not me. Because then people are giving decades and entire lives to something that was false and a fraud, and they chose misery in the now for nothing later, right? Mm-hmm. For nothing later. And so that's, maybe that's a decent segue into what comes after the separation. Do you have thoughts and reactions to that?
I just wanted to comment. I've actually thought about that concept of like living for heaven a lot ever since my brother died, because like that was kind of my light bulb of waking me up and saying, okay, I don't know what happens after this. I hope there's something. I kind of don't think there is, but like maybe, and hopefully there is. But do I really want to live my life based on what's going to happen next? And I feel like as a church member, that's how I did live my life. Every decision that I made was based on getting to the celestial kingdom. And I didn't realize that like I was doing that still, even after leaving the church. And it wasn't to live in the celestial kingdom, but it was like for what comes next. Okay, well, if I can just get through this hard portion of life, it's going to be better later. Okay, well, if I can just do this now, then I'll get here later. And I think I kind of realized, you know what? Like I could get in a car accident today and everything would be gone, eternal dial tone, who knows? But do I really want to live my life every day based on what's going to happen next? And of course we have to like be responsible and think and plan for the future. But I think it's really ingrained in us to make decisions not based on if that's the best thing for us or if that's what's going to make us happy, if that's what's going to fulfill us or put us in touch with our best selves. But like, I have to do this now because of heaven. And I think that a lot of people do that. And I was still doing it and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to do this for this thing later. But guess what? All I have is right now. And so like, if I cannot wake up and feel joy, that's a problem. And so what can I do right now that is appropriate, that is good? It's not like I want to just wake up and, do cocaine and go to, a strip club.
Hell yeah.
If that might sound fun, but like, what can I actually do to feel joy in my life right now? Because that's all we have control of is what is happening.
It's all you know
right
for
this
sure
minute.
that you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. So
You don't know that you have anything after this.
right.
And, and
It's all you know for sure is that you have this life now.
yes.
what I know for sure. And I think that like, even outside of the promises of Mormonism, which, I hear you saying all that, but I'm just like, well, it has to be true because it can't, if it was a fraud, it wouldn't be working. That's like where I think, this is how I think when I hear you guys say these things, like Andrea will say, that's made up. And I'll be like, you are clouded by Satan.
Satan's got me.
But also on just a human level, we do a lot of things as moms with our babies because it gets better and we're building lives and that's noble.
Yeah.
Sure.
We do.
Yeah.
We put up with a lot of bullshit in marriage because we want that golden anniversary. We want to gather our children around. We want to be gray haired and wrinkled skin and look around and be like, well, we did it,
Yeah.
And that's on earth, but we don't, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not just eternal glory. It's just kind of like we have set up these parameters of what it means to be a successful human. And it's pretty messed up. And it's mostly based on sacrifice and conforming. And at the same time that we have this for middle America or, the universe of normal people, we esteem those that just blow it up, that
Glennon Doyle,
Brene
Brown, they've both been divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oprah,
Never got married, never had kids.
just defied all of these things. And we esteem the trailblazers that we don't risk or want to be because the promises are not on a Hallmark greeting card. Congratulations on being an independent, successful entrepreneur, never marrying and never having children because you have changed the face of the earth. Go into a drugstore and find that greeting card. Mm-hmm. Go into a drugstore for a Glennon Doyle greeting card that says,
You're a lesbian.
you're a lesbian, but you
Best-selling
lived as a
author.
husband. Yeah, and suffered through infidelity and marriage and get probably more troll DMs, from women, from latent lesbians.
Well, she was a Christian blogger, so I mean, she's gotten a ton of backlash.
Get
from,
that card. Where's that card that says, way to go, congratulations on telling your children that they can wear short shorts and tank tops and it doesn't reflect their character or their promiscuity.
Their worth. Yeah.
Or their lack of respect for themselves or their oppression of men. Think about sex, boys. Think about sex. You know what I mean? Like, just find those greeting cards in the world. Find those accolades from society, because we esteem it, and we are all drawn to
Do you
it.
know what? I just had an idea.
What?
Gay and Dre's greeting cards. You guys need to have a line
made
of
one for
that say
Oprah.
those things. Seriously, that's an opportunity.
Congratulations for realizing that.
So we have two customers, Glennon Doyle and Oprah, and the rest of us are just like,
And Brene
what
Brown.
the-
Those are three good customers.
Because if I had come across that greeting card, never married, never had children, longtime partner, think of the things that Oprah went through in her youth, struggling even as a woman of color in the networks and like everything. And you know, and just her personal things that she's discussed, weight and society and all these things. If I read that card, I'd be like, woo, this is a doozy.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to receive that card because that's a whole lot of hard.
Right.
I want the card that says happy golden anniversary. I look at you too and I think this is what love is.
But okay, but this is why it's messed up. And thank you for Margie's like, John, you're talking a lot in these interviews with Heather and Dre. And I'm like, yeah, they're like
Bring it back to the
conversations.
stars.
This is
We
like,
love it.
like, you know, sometimes I just let people roll and tell their stories, but sometimes I want to get into the conversation. But let me just say what's messed up about this. Whoever makes those greeting cards, whoever created the Mormon ideal, right? Why we need to not pay attention to that anymore is because there's something bigger. There's something more significant here. And there's a lie that we've all been told, which is that all marriages should last 80 years and that divorce is a failure. Those are two lies, harmful, damaging lies we've been told. And this is someone who's been married 26 years, almost 27. I want to go to 80. Okay. But I didn't want to 10 years ago. And if I had been in that marriage, if that marriage had continued, I think it would have been good for both of us to end it. And so here's all I'm saying is that I've got this dear friend named, he's already spoken about this publicly. So I'm going to talk about it. So I've got this dear friend named Brandon Chuckets. Okay. And Brandon went to high school with my daughter, Maya. They were in show choir together. I think everyone but Brandon knew he was gay, you know, his whole life. But super righteous Mormon, goes on a mission, marries his high school sweetheart, Addie, have a son together. And then Brandon just was promised that, you know, his gayness would go away as a Mormon if he got married and served his mission and was faithful. And it didn't. And I don't want to tell their story, but it got really, really bad for both of them. And they're both awesome, amazing, talented, successful, good people who love each other, who are best friends, right? But it would not have been healthy for either of them to keep that marriage going, okay? My favorite post ever on Facebook is once they decided that they needed to separate, once they decided that they shouldn't hang on to this marriage, even though they loved each other and were best friends. Do you know what they did? They had a breaking up moon or a divorce moon. So instead of a honeymoon where you get married and you go off and have a celebration, they went off to Vegas or wherever they went, and they had a weekend together as best friends who love each other that were celebrating the end of their relationship because it was not going to be good for them or the child to continue. But instead of hating each other and destroying each other with lawyers and seeing their time together as this huge failure, they celebrated it. And they loved each other and embraced each other and connected about it and said, the time that we had was beautiful and we are successes for the time we had together. And we're going to part as close to besties as we can. And then we're going to love each other and co-parent this beautiful child together and then go on and find the love and the joy that we should have. And that's the destructive lie that we were told, is that every marriage needs to be everlasting. Some should, but some shouldn't. And that every divorce is a failure. That's a lie. What if you had 10 great years together? Or what if you had 5 great years together? Or what if you just created good kids together? Or what if you had a miserable time, but you gave it your best shot and it was a hero's journey just to not die and not kill each other? Why don't we celebrate all that? Why don't we celebrate divorces as like, look at the great things you did while you were together? And I'm sorry you got me on a roll there, but
No, I feel passionate about that. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow, like the conscious uncoupling,
right.
She got so much flack, but it was such a non-charged way to say evolution, you know, and a lot of people were commenting saying like, Heather, you're like graduating from this childlike state of Mormonism to, you know, higher education of Mormonism. And they're spinning like my faith crisis as a transition. But I also think like we look at a job change as a brave move. We look at, you know, breaking up with a toxic boyfriend and finding a different boyfriend. We look at all of our little like baby steps toward who we become as evolution, but we look at divorce as a step backward and as a failure. And I want to be so deeply grateful for the experience of marriage and sex and having children. And I really look at my girls and like a lot of the best things about them are 100% their dad. 100%. And I know that consciously and I know that emotionally. And I want them to be fiercely proud of that. And also 50% of what makes them forces to be reckoned with comes from me, you know? And I want to celebrate that. And I want it to be beautiful and cool, but we don't know how to say it. I don't know how to present myself without the scarlet letter of divorce on my chest. Mm-hmm. And I want to be a trailblazer in saying, like, yeah, let's redefine it.
Yeah. Good for them for celebrating that we had wonderful time together. This is not the right thing, but we're going to move forward and in love. And it's the conscious uncoupling. I love
not
that.
looking back as having failed.
As a failure, totally.
You look back as having a journey, a chapter together.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and it's interesting that you said the word evolution because I have, obviously in the last few years have had therapy once a week with my therapist trying to fix myself. And I remember sitting in his office sobbing and saying, and I've changed. This is the problem, is that I'm different now than I was 10 years ago when I got married. I am the problem. I have changed. And he said, well, I certainly hope you have. I hope you're not the same person that you were 10 years ago, because the whole point of being a human is to grow and evolve. And so I'm sorry that you evolved into something that maybe isn't going to work in your marriage anymore, but do not apologize to me for evolving and changing and growing, because that is the point. Hopefully we are all evolving, and we have to stop looking at it like a failure and thinking it's an evolution. And I believe that with my second marriage too. Like, our relationship has changed. He's still going to be in my life. We're still going to raise children together. We are still going to love and respect each other. It's just evolved into a different type of relationship because he deserves to be happy.
And you've become a person he doesn't want to be married to. And you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, he still wants to be married to you, but like, you've changed and he knows what he wants and needs, and you know what you want and need, and they're different. Yeah. So we wouldn't fault someone for saying, I don't want Indian food tonight, which you should always want Indian food. That's the best. But I'm going to start intermittent fasting.
Oh, or intermittent fasting. Thanks a lot, John.
We're cutting out dairy. And what else did John cut out? Cheese? I don't know.
No sugar.
No sugar and cheese. I mean, and
do you have joy, John?
Yeah. We kept feeling
interviewing
joy.
you two and my family are my joy.
Yeah, I think that it's refreshing, and I think that I commiserate so much with people that are struggling with their sexual identity. You're not even struggling, or just concealing it. Because I feel like I would have to suppress and eat, wrong word. I would have to swallow a lot of my natural proclivities, my natural instincts in order to be a good Mormon. And I think that is kind of what we sell as Mormonism, you know?
Natural man is an enemy of God.
Yeah, it's a refiner's fire, man. Mm-hmm. That was my mission scripture. I wanted to be put through the refiner's fire. I wanted to become pure and malleable. And I was like, I know who I am and who I can be. Like, I really just felt this strength, but I want to see what happens when I completely surrender and who I can become in the hands of God. And that was just like a young Mormon ideal, like and there was also that, it's kind of romantic concept, like, I'm just going to surrender to Jesus, like, I just felt like if I really did this and was dutiful, and I realized midway through my mission, it wasn't even midway, you guys, it was like, I was in Marseille for 5 months, and it was probably 2.5, 3 months in, And the reality of being a missionary clicked in, and the reality of what it was. And I remember waking up at like 6 a.m. and putting my feet on this tile floor in my Marseille apartment. I don't know why this image is burned in my memory, but I remember looking at my feet and feeling kind of the dread of the day and the repetitiveness of it. I'm going to say the hollowness, the conflict with, it was a unique situation where there were 6 missionaries in one apartment. I had just been assigned to be a trainer. I'd only been there 7 or 8 weeks. I barely spoke the language, and they took me from being we called them les bleus, like the greenies, to being a trainer. And again, that didn't surprise me because this is who I was. You know what I mean? When you put me in a room, I'm going to float to the top or whatever. So I was prepared for it and I was inspired by it. But I just remember thinking, wow, like this is where you dig deep. I'm not floating on the MTC energy or the Spirit of God or my testimony anymore. This is just, I'm putting my feet on this cold ceramic floor at 6 a.m. And I looked down at my feet and I thought, I just need to do this like 179 more days. I remember the number, but it was like for another year, basically. And that reality of it like settled in. But I remember just like thinking, okay, so it's duty over desire. Like I don't have the desire to, just give it my all anymore. Like that the euphoria is worn off, the day-to-day is settled in, and now I don't have the desire, but I have the duty. And I think that is what made me like committed to my marriage. And so when my marriage ended, I didn't know where duty and desire fell because I couldn't be dutiful anymore. I had neither anymore. I had no desire to, be anything. I had zero emotion. I was dead inside. So I had no desire, but I also didn't know what my duty was other than to be a phenomenal or the best mother I could be to my children. Phenomenal would be a stretch, but the best mother I could be to my children. And I was also overwhelmed when we first separated with the world that was awaiting me because I was totally still Relief Society president, still towing the line, so to speak, but I was hurting and reeling and had no resources. So I started to like branch out and make friends that were, single women. And one of my dearest friends moved into the ward and everyone said, oh, our friend's moving into the ward. She's separating from her husband. She's starting to leave the church. We need you to swoop in and, and make sure she doesn't leave. And which is my specialty. Like I was a missionary. My neighbor 2 doors down, totally zero interest in the gospel, joined the church, got baptized. I spoke at their baptism with Bell's palsy, like facial paralysis, still gave the dedicatory prayer. I was like a pioneer. Like that was what my identity, and like I loved being that person. I loved being the person that could just show up. So I was always a missionary and I loved the gospel. And I loved it. And I wanted people to know why I'm so happy and successful. I loved being a missionary and I loved, sharing the gospel with people.
And you also like a challenge, may I point out?
Yes, I love a challenge.
That would definitely, I think, get your blood flowing a little bit to be like, okay, there's this person that's in a similar situation as me, but she's leaving, which is the worst.
Yeah.
So like, let me fix this, let me rescue, and let me take on this challenge.
Yeah. And let me show her that you can be a cool Mormon. You don't have to just be like a weird Mormon. You can be sexy and you can be funny and you can be renegade and you can be cool and you can still get to heaven. Like that was my brand. And, she came to church, which she didn't want to do. And she met with me and like, she was my divorce shaman. She was my guru and she was wild. And she was a gift to me. And
Wild meaning not living standards? Or?
Wild is just like, I love sex. I love men. I am so over being Mormon. I have no shame. I have no guilt. I have no fear.
But she was still going to church.
No, she came to church to meet me because like all of our friends had said, you have to meet Heather.
Oh, okay.
And that was the only way we were going to meet. And then once we met and got each other's numbers, she lived across the street from me, like across, just kitty corner neighborhood. So we could walk to each other's
trying to think
homes.
of who this is.
So my Mormon
Okay.
my Mormon brain is saying, well, this sounds like a bad influence, like somebody that taught you evil. You know what I'm saying? That's what my Mormon brain is saying.
And I knew that, but like she was also, our children were in the same grade. And like she saved my life.
But how do you go from being Relief Society president to starting to not toe the line? And how did
Total
that save
debauchery.
Your life? How did that save your life? How did debauchery? They say wickedness never was happiness. How did wickedness become happiness for you? And I'm not saying you're wicked. I'm using that.
No,
Nor
using
are
that
you
term.
happy? No.
Show them your shirt.
like, well-
Show them your shirt.
Sinners.
Sinners.
How did wickedness become happiness for you? And I say wickedness in quotes.
Well, so I always say I was dead inside. I had no joy, but like I had a lot of fun. Okay. A lot of fun. And you could say a lot of happiness. Like I'm always fun. I think I'm always laughing. I'm always having a good time, but like, I would never say I'm like Robin Williams, but like there's darkness, there's shadow to everything.
Well, and there is a difference between glee and joy.
Yeah.
Like we can all have experienced those gleeful moments. It doesn't mean that there's
you can
meaning and depth to it.
You can get euphoria. You can get euphoria chemically. You can get euphoria sexually. You can have euphoria and not have abiding happiness or joy. And I understood the difference between those two because I was a true believing Mormon. And in many ways am a true believing Mormon. So I just loved having this wild friend that I could just sit back and be like, and I would see her go out and do things and drink and have zero repercussions. Zero, just fabulous stories to tell. And I wanted to self-medicate and I wanted to fall into that world where I wasn't a mom. I wasn't a divorced or separated. I wasn't a fallen angel. I wasn't letting down generations of pioneers that were in heaven. Like, what is she doing? I had that Clash of the Titans view of my life, like Zeus and, they're putting the little clay figurines in certain positions to like flick them over and see what happens. And I was like, I'm going to bounce back up like a weeble. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And I'm going to have my identity be as someone that never faltered. And that was not who I was acclimated to be. And I needed someone to kind of show me the way. And so
Does that mean you started drinking with her?
Yeah.
You tried alcohol?
Totally.
Okay.
I'd had alcohol before, but like I started drinking with her. I started going out with her. I started like just being absolutely reckless and wild and, then coming home and being Mormon.
What do you mean reckless and wild?
I mean, well, what do
just
you
like
think
staying
it means?
out late,
I mean,
drinking.
I don't know.
I had a nanny and I would go out and
Like go to bars? Clubs?
Yeah, clubs, actually clubs. It's like so long ago, but like clubs and she'd have people over and we started like anywhere I went, we would meet men. I didn't have any I hadn't really branched out that way yet, but I had to have someone that was plunging the needle on the other end to see that like my flesh wouldn't melt off of my face and that she was a mom. She had kids and she was a mom. And I would just be like, oh, I'm just like more into like foreplay. And she'd be like, oh, I'm all about penetration. I mean, I was just like, like I would just.
Your flesh does fall off.
Yeah. And then I'm just like, whoa.
How do you drink alcohol as a believing Mormon? I don't understand that. I have a hard time drinking it as a ex-Mormon. How did you go from Relief Society president to drinking alcohol and going partying
Pain.
to clubs?
Pure pain and self-medication. I was not even conscious of who I was in any way. And I was compartmentalizing, but I was in pain. It's the same way that you would take a Xanax if you're having a panic attack. If you would, take heart medication if you were having palpitations. I had no resource. I was in therapy, but I was also dead inside. So it's very easy to do anything when you're dead inside.
What about guilt? What about guilt, Mormon guilt and shame?
my pain superseded all of that.
So it felt better to feel numb and to have a little
Whatever
fun
it took
than
to feel numb
have the repercussions
and
of
to
guilt.
feel like, well, shit, man, you know, the dream is gone. And, you know, this is as a couple years in, like the dream is gone, and I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. And like those promises were not made true. And I had no idea, no desire to be like a good, I really, the only reason I'd never not drank or not slept around was not because I didn't want to. I didn't have the opportunity, and I didn't want to corrupt my chances of having the prize. You know, if you know what the prize is, you follow the rules. And the prize was a temple marriage and a great spouse. And I had gotten that. It had not worked out. And so now I was just,
well, it's gone anyway.
yeah.
So.
And like now there's no contest, you know, the rules are gone. And I was in so much pain that I couldn't see the forest through the trees at all.
So did you just shut off that believing part of you, that guilt, shame part of you? Did it just recede?
I just compartmentalized, and I was still a true believing Mormon with my children.
You still show up on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Act like
I've
a total
never not
believer.
gone to church until COVID.
So,
Every
so
Sunday.
you would go to church and act like everything was normal.
Take the sacrament, not even flinch.
And you wouldn't feel guilt taking the sacrament, knowing you were breaking the word of wisdom, for example.
I was conscious of it. But I was reverting back to my cool Mormonism, which was, you know, the culture says no unclean hand should partake of the sacrament. And I'm supposed to like, you know, go talk to these older men about like,
Bishop.
yeah, the
to
bishop,
confess,
yeah,
right?
to confess and say that like I had a shot, a fireball. You know what I mean? But it was not, it was just like, it just seemed like you all don't know what I'm going through. And I could be pounding oxycodone to get through. And this is just, I'm doing this
So
in
more
a
just like
social
justification and
opportunity, kind of met justification and met the tumult I was in. I was in a washing machine.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't seeing up or down or right or wrong. I was just like,
Surviving.
I was surviving.
Yeah.
And I had 3 little children that I loved, and I was showing up. I was in charge of the yearbook. I was, you know, on the PTA. I was the
queen of the moms.
I was the meet the master's art teacher. I was still, I think at that point I was serving in Young Women's, you know, like just like but I was going to church, and I was also trying to prove that I was the one that was better than Billy, you know. Because everyone's like, why'd you get divorced? It's someone's fault. You know, it's never both of your fault. It's never an evolution. It's never a conscious uncomplete. Was there a porn addiction? No. Was there infidelity? No. Was there abuse? No.
Yeah.
He didn't
then
like
why couldn't
me
you just stick it out? Yeah.
because he wasn't willing to feign love and commitment, and I was. That's the truth of it. He was not willing to sell his birthright for a bowl of pottage in terms of like you flip the script, and I was. I was saying, I don't need happiness. I don't need to be seen. I don't need to be heard. I don't need to have fulfillment in my marriage. But I definitely need the auspice of an eternal marriage. And I need a husband that makes money and shows up and takes me to Hawaii and takes me to St. George. And, you know, like I need all of that in order to create the family that I esteem that I need to have.
Yeah. So in some ways, you know, shout out to Billy for choosing joy, right? Like it was good for both of you. Probably, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But
There's a part of me that believes that.
yeah. How did this woman save your life? You said she saved your life. Were you being...
She gave me an option. And because she brought into my life the people that have changed my life, which were my very gay best friends. So I was at her house, and she was having a party. And this was my only social interaction outside of school. And every one of my friends this is the only single friend I had. I had a divorced friend that lived with her parents who was, you know, saved my life in other ways because there was something, but she was also just towing the line for her children. You know, she wasn't out dating. She wasn't trying to like evolve. She was just trying to like keep I really want to say this, like keep the damage to a minimum.
Keep the wheels on the wagon.
Keep the wheels on the wagon, like keep our children as sheltered and as safe and as comfortable and, you know, steady as possible. And I felt that too, but I had an opportunity to go out and like have this whole world of divorced Mormons or single Mormons or just wild Mormons. And I loved them. I loved them. And I was at her house, but I was still very, very much, it was few and far between that I went out. And it was always, celebratory or just like, I felt I earned it. I'm in so much pain. I'm in, and I couldn't even, I had no self-awareness. I was literally in a washing machine. Like I'd come up for air and then go back in, and that's how I was leading my life. And I met this gay man came up to me and we started talking and we hit it off. And I don't know why, but it just got deep really quickly. And it was the first time we met, but within minutes, he and his boyfriend said to me, like, we're gay. We love the church. We're returned missionaries. And I very much have a testimony of the gospel. And I am very much an active gay man. And so you can imagine what possibilities that opened up for me. And I wanted to just weep, and like hug them and be like, I'm with you. Like I believe all of this but it can't be true for me, just like it couldn't be true for them. Like, I don't want a life of celibacy. I don't want a life of duty. I don't want a life where I suppress anything and everything in order to get to heaven. And I don't want that for you. And I could see it clearly for them, clearly. But I couldn't give myself that same permission, just like I could see it clearly for my own children, clearly for Dre, but I couldn't give myself that same permission. And they said to me, you do not have to pick. And I remember what they were wearing. I remember where I was standing because it was probably like the moment that someone knows the gospel is true or someone falls in love, because they said, we are gay men with testimonies of the gospel and actively gay, which can't work. Can't work according to the doctrine, not the culture, but the doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you don't have to choose. You do not have to choose. And I had never really allowed myself that option. I just said, because I want to go to church every Sunday. I want to go. I know that I don't have to go. I could pull the covers over my head, not dress my 3 beautiful babies and tow them in and get them, not teach class. I want to be there. It is as fundamental to my identity as anything. But I also am divorced. So now what do? And I also knew that I did not want to get back into a different marriage and I esteemed a lot of the things that came with Mormonism. Like, I didn't want to raise someone else's kids. It was hard enough for me to raise my own, and they're my flesh and blood. You know what I mean? And I did not want to wipe another woman's child's butt. And makes me sound like a horrible human. I would wipe your kids' butts for a limited time, but then I'd hire someone else to do it.
I know you would. Yeah.
Because the menial tasks of motherhood were noble when it was my family, but I didn't want to just do it to have a family. And I didn't understand. I was so committed to the doctrine of eternal marriage that I didn't understand how it would work. Like, what? Like a temple divorce, and then who do my kids go with, and how does that work, and where's the eternal round? And I'm married. I'm still sealed to my ex-husband, and that covenant my understanding of the doctrine is that covenant will not be broken unless there's another righteous priesthood holder that can break that covenant and then take upon me the burden of getting me in through the veil to heaven. And that's accurate, right? For the doctrine of the church.
That's what I understand. Yeah.
As far as I understand it, there is a man that must part the veil and bring me through. And if it's not my spouse, who, by the way, forgot my new name like a month into our marriage, if it was not going to be him, I wasn't ready to get back into that dynamic with children that weren't born of that union. And that is, I'm not judging anyone that does it. I esteem and love that they are capable of it, and I know that they have wonderful lives. But I was so entrenched in this concept of eternal family and us, what was sealed on earth being sealed in heaven, that it just seemed like, okay, yeah, now we're going through some bullshit, but like it's going to all work out in the end. And I didn't understand how, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be celibate and find a Mormon companion and get a temple divorce and be sealed to him in the temple and then have my children sealed to him. That was never going to happen. Billy was never not going to be Mormon. Billy was never going to forego our family. And so why would I create that. I didn't want to create it for my kids. They were weird when I had a play date or a friend drop by. It changed who they were. And so I was intuitively aware of that. And I didn't want to like here's your new brothers and sisters. And also I'm an all-in person. When I'm in love with a man, I change. I change so that I can just love them. And I'm all in. And I thought I didn't trust myself to fall in love with someone. And then like, if my daughters, were irritated with his children, I would have been like, stop it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you swallow it because that's what we do. We swallow it so that everyone else can feel comfortable and happy. And I knew my proclivity to do that. And I did not want to create that environment for my children because I did not trust myself. So when these beautiful, actively gay men said to me, you don't have to choose and you can be both, I wept. I think I cried. And we were at a party and they became my very, 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 very best friends. And they just swooped in where my other friend had been kind of like showing me, what she was doing. But she was dating and I was not dating. That was like not my vibe, that was too much. Like I could partake or drink or self-medicate, but I just wasn't ready to like, I didn't want that. I didn't want to even scratch the surface of that. You know what I mean? Like you don't peek under the covers because you don't want to know what's going on. And so they became my very best friends. And I was able to, for the first time in my life, be every debaucherous, funny, loud, sarcastic, horrible part of myself. And also quote scripture and be pious and self-righteous and, dogmatic about my beliefs. And they allowed me to be that. And I had never felt such acceptance and love that I did. And also in their community, because they introduced me to all their friends. And I started to see the doctrines started to crumble around that for me a little bit, because I knew that the doctrine of the church clearly stated that active homosexual men and women had no place in the plan of happiness or in the kingdom of God unless they chose celibacy and a belief that who they were was wrong. And when they got to heaven, God would make it right.
Meaning?
He would make their sexual proclivities be gender-based.
He would de-gayify them.
He would de-gayify them and have it be a man and a woman, and that their sexual prowess and sexual identity was contingent on their gender and who they were allowed to love. And I had always had gay friends, just like, of course, like, oh yes, I love everyone, but never someone so intimate where like, these were the people I wanted to be in heaven with. These were the people that understood me on a level that, and I say these like my gays, like my boys, like, and I have never felt more loved, accepted, or myself. And I could be as loud and obtrusive and lack of feminine or, I could be anything I wanted to be. And we genuinely loved each other. And they were my very, very, very best friends. And they kind of came in and took over every deficit I had for socialization, for social activity, for camaraderie, for love, for acceptance. And they became like wonderful friends to my children, wonderful examples of men and a masculine presence in our home and in our lives. And it became my lifeline. And so if I had not had my friend that came to church and met me, I would not have met them. And they were for sure the most fundamental influence on my life outside of my family. And I loved them. And how could I love them and profess to believe the gospel? Because I certainly didn't want what was prescribed to them was prescribed to me. You can be who you are. We love and accept you who you are. You can come to church, you can take the sacrament, you can have a calling, but you cannot act on your sexual desires and you cannot proclaim anything other than allegiance to the gospel, or we will not allow you those things. And I wanted them to have sex. I wanted me to have sex. I wanted, you know what I mean? It was just like, I would never say, I'm going to be a priest or a nun so that I can get to heaven. And that's what the doctrine of the church expects of them. Like, you can be gay, but you just can't act on it or say you're gay, really. Or you can say you're gay, but
If you engage in
if you
sexual
engage in
activity,
sexual activity or achieve a relationship or have love or children, we are going to turn our back to that because that is not allowed, right? That's the law of chastity. And I mean, am I wrong on the doctrine of the church here?
No, and let's just say sex, yes, but it's really if you fall in love with somebody and you want to marry them and you want to dedicate your life of commitment to them, and they just happen to be of the same gender, and you get legally married and you do it all legally and you love each other, and it's even if it's monogamous, if you choose that, that's sinful. That's evil in the sight of God and the church. And then you are not allowed to engage as a first-class member of the church. You're a third-class member of the church. You risk excommunication, and you're damned to live in a subcategory of heaven. And you won't be with your parents. You won't be with Heavenly Father. You won't be with your siblings. You'll be damned to a lower degree. And there's no part in God's plan of salvation for you. There is no part for the gays if they actually have love. Sex is just one component. It's actually just emotional intimacy and companionship and connection. That's what they're forbidden. And to this day, it's December, 17th, 2020, 18th, 2020. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints still condemns same-sex love, monogamy, and commitment as evil.
An abomination.
And as
to
an
the Lord.
abomination that keeps you from the Lord's presence in the afterlife.
Absolutely.
And what do you think about that teaching?
That's not the culture. That's the doctrine of the church.
Yeah.
And I would never diminish what homosexual or gay men and women experience because I have had there was an avenue for me to explore my sexual identity and have fulfillment and love and commitment and follow the gospel plan of happiness. But as a divorced woman, I would be remiss if I didn't say I commiserated 100-fold. Because here I'm an adult woman that's been sexually active for 11 years. And now I'm supposed to just be celibate and marry someone on the premise of our makeouts.
it's crazy.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I risk.
It is unhealthy.
I risk
It's
my
dangerous.
membership in the church, my standing with my family, my communion with God if I pursue a sexual relationship with someone I love outside of the confines of a temple marriage. And my gay brothers and sisters face that, but they also don't have the option of a temple marriage. So we are all in this together. And although there's an avenue for me to safely get back to God and have sex and have love and have commitment and a family, there is no option for you, my friend. If we believe in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you are excluded and you are the most important people in my life. The most important people in my life. And you're more evolved and have more love and more to give to the world and to a family than I ever would. And here I esteem myself because of my gender bias, to be what God wanted, and you're an aberration. And I didn't believe that. But I hadn't had such deep love for someone in those circumstances because I hadn't been exposed to it and I hadn't been allowed it. It took, when Dre said that it took her being humbled and living with her green apron and not being part of the Queen of the Moms when she was superior to all of us, truly, absolutely superior. And I was always drawn to her. There were a lot of women I didn't notice. I always knew her and I always knew her kids and there's a power about you. But when I became totally entrenched in my friends' lives and the only people that understood me, I felt like during that time, and who dropped everything to support me and support my children and be wonderful to me, that's when my first schism of faith occurred. In my faith crisis, I was like, I cannot reconcile this. And when I said, who do I want to be in heaven with? All of a sudden, of course, my children, but it's not my ex-spouse for which I am sealed, for whom is the only link back to the celestial kingdom. It is these men that are living their truth and who still love me and accept me with all of my prejudices and my preconceived, dogmatic notions and wickedness never was happiness, Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, like, and they understood that and embraced it and had served missions and loved all of the wonderful things about the gospel. But it was fundamentally a cognitive dissonance with who they were born to be, and how they were going to live their lives. And I felt a kinship to that, because who I was born to be and what my future looked like was eerily similar. And none of those options of just celibacy and duty and martyrdom martyrdom in marriage was fine. Martyrdom as a single woman was cats in a rocking chair and dust balls under my bed. And that was not going to happen. That's not who I was born to be. And all of a sudden it was like, I was born this way and you were born this way. And I cannot raise my daughters in a church that teaches them that their value to God is based on who they love. Because I don't believe that. I don't believe that about God. I do not believe that about our Savior. I do not believe that about our humanity or our fellow man. I think gender is fluid. I think sexuality is fluid. And I think that for us to box it and contain it because it's such a powerful life force is a detriment to mankind. And I will not pay tithing to a church that supports that, regardless of my beliefs. I may believe the first vision, and I do, you guys. I believe the first vision occurred. I don't think Joseph Smith was a charlatan. I think that he prayed and he saw that and he experienced it, just like I believe Muhammad did when he received the revelation for the Quran, just like I believe, you know, a lot of 15-year-old young boys. God chooses 15-year-old young boys. I don't know why, for the world religions. But I don't not believe in the Virgin Mary, and I don't not believe in, you know, all of it. But I don't believe that I want to contribute my time, my sweat equity, and my money to a church that's going to tell my children that their worth in the eyes of God and their salvation is contingent on the gender they identify with and the gender they choose to love. Because I think that is irrelevant. And that's when my faith started to absolutely deteriorate.
If I can just add one very quick thing. For me, the most heinous, odious, despicable part of the LDS Church's teachings around LGBT people is that the net effect of the teachings of the church is that true joy and happiness is impossible in this life. And the only way that they can be with someone that they truly love and find true joy is if they die. And we wonder why the suicide rates in Utah have been sometimes 2 to 3 times the national average. There has to be at least some association with telling 5% of your population, which is the LGBT population. It could be 10%. It just depends on how you define it. But telling this huge percent of the population, you have to die to find joy and true love. Then why wouldn't they just go ahead and die?
Right. It's pretty powerful when you think about it that way. And that it's a terrible doctrine, I think.
And for a
Does
church,
not work for me.
For a church, what makes it hard is our church says that, okay, yeah, the Pope is a good man, or, you know, the Billy Graham or whatever, the Dalai Lama, all have inspired, you know, but our God, our prophet has the bat phone to God. Our prophet is the only one that speaks directly to God. If you're going to make that claim, then what you're basically saying is that God wants these LGBT people to be lonely and sad and miserable. And God doesn't want to expand the plan of salvation. Because look, there's 130 whatever sections of the Doctrine and Covenants. There's been several proclamations, several declarations. We got rid of polygamy. We gave blacks the priesthood. There's all sorts of ways we've changed, right? We've changed in a million ways. In fact, if there's one thing that's been constant in Mormonism, it's been change. The church wasn't even called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when the church started. They changed the name like 3 times, just the name. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But you're telling me that by 2020, when you've seen this decades littered with LGBTQ suicide, depression, ostracization from family, and a plan of salvation that makes no room for these people. There's no plan other than celibacy or mixed orientation marriages, which means depression and sadness and misery.
And a lie.
Right. And living a lie.
Deceit. Absolute
and living
deceit.
a lie. That God doesn't care enough, even though he can talk to the prophet and the prophet can create section 139 or 140 or 145, declaration 3, that the prophet and God don't care about these people enough to amend the plan of salvation so that there's a role for them to have happiness and joy in this life, authenticity in this life, and true love in this life. That God isn't smart enough or caring enough or creative enough to come up with a component of a plan for these people. They have to die to find happiness and love. That's awful. And for all the way Love Loud and press releases and the Mormons and Gays website and all the ways that you have tried, Mormon Church, to say, we don't hate the gays. We love the gays. Look, we have a website that says Mormons and Gays. We'll say the word gay. That was a huge moment when the church was actually willing to use the acronym LGBTQ or even acknowledge gay or lesbian as an identity versus always saying same-sex attracted or just evil sinners, which is what we did for decades and decades, right? But it's not enough for the church to say, we don't hate the gays. Look, Love Loud, Dan Reynolds, Imagine Dragons, Tyler Glenn, like, we love the gays. No. Either God's going to talk to our prophet and create a new component of the plan of salvation that allows these people to have joy, authenticity, and love in this life.
On this earth.
On this earth.
On this planet.
Or game over, right? It's not of God. It's not of God. It can't be of God. How can it be of God?
It can't be of God. And if you believe the Doctrine and Covenants that God exists on a revolving globe of glass and fire where time is of no essence, and then our bodies and our genitalia is of no essence, you know? And how we define who we love and who we are, it's hearts, not parts, you know?
Yeah.
It's all of it. And that is doctrine. It doesn't matter
That's why they can't change it, because how do you change doctrine, you know? And it makes it look like they're making it up and caving to social pressure if they change.
I feel like I don't understand how people are just absolutely swallowing that we're changing the terminology in the temple and the covenants we made in the temple. Like, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that gave me solace as a true believing Mormon. And to know that my sister, when she first received her endowment, made different blood oath covenants than I made 10 years later is interesting to me.
But it's also outrageous because, okay, they'll make the garment shorter for white middle-class women. They'll take the veil away for, East Bench white Mormon women. They'll change the temple vows so that women don't have to keep, promising to hearken to their husband as the husband covenants with God. They'll change all that because we can't lose our white, upper middle class, educated Mormon women. So we've got to make changes for them.
Man.
Yeah.
Got to keep them. Got to keep them. But sorry, LGBTQ people, we'll make a PR statement in the first Love Loud, and we'll cart out, an occasional straight celibate LGBT person to say we love the gays and here's a website. But they won't make changes, meaningful changes for them, other than to make a hateful 2015 exclusionary policy, only then to have them, after there's massive outrage and huge disaffections, then they roll that back and say it was revelation to create an outrageous, hateful exclusionary policy, and then it's revelation to roll it back. But there's no actual revelation to give these LGBTQ people authenticity, joy, and love. God doesn't care. The prophet doesn't care. The church is bound to have all these deaths and suicides and misery.
And that is not imperfect humans running the church. That is
God.
God.
God wants
Russell M. Nelson speaks directly to God.
Yeah.
And God has said, it's still not okay with me. It's Adam and Eve, and it is that plan. And if the church were to come out tomorrow, if Russell M. Nelson were to say, we renounce the family proclamation, we do not believe that God and Mother God and gender are intrinsic to your eternal identity, and that your genitalia dictates your role in life and your proclivities as a son or daughter of God and your salvation. If they were to say that, what would happen? What would happen to my testimony? Like, I'd be like, I knew it. I knew they'd change their mind about gay people and transgender. And I knew it, like, what did Black people that joined the church before 1978 believe? And they said, I had so much faith. I was so believing. And then I knew it would happen. And in 1978, they finally said I could have the priesthood. And we tell these beautiful tear-jerking stories of, this young man sitting down and having everyone put their hands on his head, and he's now worthy of the priesthood because it's 1978. And we've already fought ERA. We've already fought civil rights. We've already lobbied and spent tithing money to keep all of that wave from taking us over, but we could not hold back the unhallowed hand of God. And society has progressed, and Black people have the priesthood. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, we've opened up this whole demographic. If God were to do that tomorrow, and the church made a declarative statement, renounced the family proclamation, and gave eternal salvation, new and everlasting covenant to any couple that lived the standards, committed their money to the church, and appeared at the temple, regardless of gender, what would change?
I mean, I think that I'm actually so surprised that has not happened yet. Obviously, I don't personally believe that the church is true. I don't think that God is telling the prophet that, but I'm surprised that on a functional level of seeing how many people are leaving the church, why as a business, they're not cluing into that and thinking we should probably make some changes. It's in their hands. They can make the changes, because I think it would do only good in the church. I think then there would be less people leaving. Think about how many gay people who want to be in the church could now be in the church.
Who still read their Book of Mormon.
Yeah, I don't understand
feel
why
a
they
deficit in their life because they can't circle back to their families and to their identities, and who have had to absolutely be total pioneers and go to their mission president parents and say, I was gay, I came back, I tried it out again for 5 years, I put my garments back on, I lived, I committed, I served, I'm gay.
Yeah.
I am gay, and I'm going to be gay. And I'm going to marry a man, and I'm not going to sleep around or do meth or do whatever you think we do. I'm going to marry a man, and we're going to have children.
Yeah.
And we're going to change the world. And I still don't get to go to heaven with you. Yeah. I'm still a blight on how you define your family and the doctrines of the church. And I believe, I keep thinking maybe God will change his mind about gay people and transgender people and humans in general. But if God does, you think all my problems would be solved, but there's a part of me that's just oh, really?
Well,
Exactly.
and that's the other side of it.
What do you mean by, oh, really? What do you mean?
I mean,
it's the same thing we were talking about.
Where is truth?
Yeah.
It starts to look like they're making it up.
Because a part of
Caving into
the
social pressure.
Book of Mormon that I deeply, deeply believed was that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And what seems archaic is because it's true. What seems backward is because it's true. And the rituals and the things that we do in the temple, as weird or as we need these as weak, fallible humans in order to retain a relationship with God. And there's some beauty and reverence and dignity to that for me. And for it to shift and change, I'm no longer attending the temple. Had I been attending the temple when the transition of the language changed, first of all, I would have been upset because I've memorized it.
You have to relearn it.
Yeah, I'd be like, wait a second, I don't need any help. I love to just be like, I got this. Yeah. Watch me. Watch and learn, sister. And I always used to, and with anticipation, wait for them to pull me through the veil, and I'd be like, you notice? No whispering, no prompting. That was me, man. Had it all. which is just pride, which I'm clearly suffer from. But yeah, I don't know how I would swallow that. I've been shocked at how the members of the church have just accepted it so willingly.
The changes for women.
The changes for women.
Yeah.
Because
in the temple.
we have told ourselves stories for decades of why we are, what is the word? Hearken to our husbands as they hearken to God. I was shocked that all of these are big, huge, fundamental changes, and no one was really talking about it. Mm-hmm. No one was saying, wow, I'm glad I get to hearken straight to God now. I don't have to go through my,
You don't have to veil your
my
face.
dumbass husband. Yeah. I don't have to veil my face. In order to participate in the true order of prayer, I don't have to hearken to my husband as he hearkens to God, because I think we realized that 50% of our active, pioneer women were like, well, guess what? My connector piece, if we were playing, Publix where we build the pipes, my joint is
faulty.
Is faulty. So we need to, and I'm just shocked that no one said, I'm not expecting anyone to be critical. I think change is great and good, and it shows evolution and it shows progression. But why isn't anyone saying, listen, stay with it? We've already changed a lot of the gender roles in the temple doctrine, which we believed was archaic symbolism from the beginning of time. And that was going to those are the things that we're going to do to get into the celestial kingdom. You know what I mean? Those rituals and those tokens they're tangible and they're physical for a reason. Mm-hmm. They're not ephemeral. They're not just they're not conceptual. They are actual. And we've already changed the language. We took away blood oath. Now we took away gender bias for the most part. Mm-hmm. Now we don't veil your faces. Give us 6 months, give us 6 years. We are going to take away, all of our discrimination against homosexuality and gender.
Yeah.
Because gender is the real, thing. If God created my soul as a female soul, there is no masculine or feminine. There's only human. So God, you want me to be female. What does that even mean?
Well, according to the family proclamation, it means staying home and taking care of your children. I mean, it's in
nurturing.
there.
That's what it says.
It's in there.
Husband provides, woman nurtures.
Yeah.
And the only reason a woman should work outside the home is if the provisions are not being met or her circumstances prove it to be impossible to not.
And what do you guys think about that now? Even for your daughters, being taught that this is because this is the thing. Another one of the things. So many when Mormon couples get divorced, often because there's a faith crisis in one or both. They should have never gotten married so young without knowing each other. They get divorced, and then the women didn't get an education, didn't pursue their careers, and then they're 35 or 40 or 45 or 50, and their husband may or may not pay alimony or child support. They may or may not have enough money to get by on now supporting 2 households. And the woman, in so many instances, is just left screwed, left high and dry, without a career, without an education, without confidence. Right? And so it's not just the church makes a change and now it'll be better. If the church were to make fundamental changes around gender or not, what do you want your daughters to be taught? And how is the church serving women right now? Now that you are now that you're in your 30s or 40s, grasping with having experienced a divorce or maybe 2, how did the church set you up for success, or did you succeed in spite of the church? And then tie it back to the proclamation on the family and what all these girls are being taught.
Well, I can speak immediately to that. Would we all agree and concur that it is ideal for a girl to marry a boy that's a returned missionary?
In the church?
In the church.
Orthodox Mormons would say, yeah.
Well, not even, okay, I'm a Mormon. I'm just like a average Mormon. I wouldn't even say Orthodox.
An RM is better than a non-RM.
She's marrying a guy, he's 21. Is he a returned missionary?
All else being equal.
Was there not a decree from the prophet that said every able and willing man of age should serve a mission.
A full-time mission.
Yeah.
And did that increase or decrease the amount of men that served missions and the decree that we put on,
Right.
the pressure we put on families?
Yep.
Would we all agree to that?
Absolutely.
Mormon,
Yeah.
ex-Mormon, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if the prophet just said, every woman should have a bachelor's degree before she gets married? She's barely going to be 21. But before you marry, a man should serve a mission and a woman should have a bachelor's degree. You know, like, okay, in the nether parts of the world, that is a
No, now with Pathways,
dream.
they could get it for cheap
But with the
through
perpetual
church.
education fund and with everything, we're going to make sure that every woman that is willing has a higher education and a practical career for no other reason than because we can do it. We can facilitate. We're $1 billion church. We're evolved. We love women. We love men. We're going to give men a foreign experience of absolute service that will increase the depth of humanity and proclaim the gospel. And we're going to give women a chance to be educated and informed and enrich their homes. We don't even have to have it be for a career. Enrich your homes. You don't want to go to school? Trade school. But before you get married, a man should serve a mission and a woman should have an education. What would that do to the membership of the church and
Improve it.
the success of the church?
It would be a billion times better.
But it would also divert the success. Because when you have an education, when you have a practical skill, you are not willing to sit in the passenger seat. And that's something that we
true.
fundamentally know. And that's why the church has, do you think the church loves education? We have the Lord's University, enter to learn, go forth to serve. That's not just for men. There's more women at BYU than there are men, and maybe other institutions where, you know, women go to BYU. It's harder for like a white East Bench holiday girl to get into BYU than any other area of the world because there's so many of us, you know? And we have not even nudged toward that. We haven't even said it. We've like, when a family is not possible, when marriage is not on the horizon, education is a wonderful pursuit. That's what we say. And the same with a mission. Why have we not made it a rule for women? Because
It is
we have
now.
different roles.
Well, girls do go on missions.
They're
now.
encouraged.
They
but
do,
it's
but they're not
a-
encouraged. I mean, it's not a decree. Is there a difference if a girl? Oh my gosh,
It's okay.
John,
It's-
sorry.
it doesn't matter.
If a girl doesn't go on a mission and a boy doesn't go on a mission, is the
different.
blight the same?
It's-
Okay,
no, it's
that's
totally
right.
different.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys, let's be
That's right.
clear.
That's
Totally
right.
different.
And any believing Mormon wants to come head toe to toe, let's discuss it because I would love to know. Because I was a return missionary, and if anything, it made me less desirable because she's gonna good luck with that one. Woo, speaks foreign languages. Woo, she thinks she's like, you know,
Yeah.
she's lived outside of her parents or a husband. Good luck.
Yeah. No, but the proclamation does, I mean, it's really clear about what our roles are as women and as men. And if that were to change, I mean, I think that would be incredibly beneficial just to us all as humans. But I totally get what you're saying, that it would not further the agenda of the church to have these little families, you have babies raised in the church. You know, rinse and
We
repeat.
don't encourage, of course, we never discriminate against education, but the women that are coming at me so hard, fast, and saying, I'm a disgrace to Mormonism and I'm a disgrace to, you know, the church. It's like, I'm just trying to navigate it. Like, I wish my life had been perfect. I wish that I married a man that loved me and wanted me to be everything I could be. I wish that he had been as committed to the falsehood of marriage as I had been. I wish for all of that, but it didn't come true. And so I'm just doing the best I can with what's happened. And like, if you had a college education, if you didn't have $1 million business that gave you equal footing in your marriage, you would probably have a different perspective. And there are Mormon women that don't have income, that don't have status in their marriage, and that don't have educations. And they are dutiful, wonderful, believing martyrs. And I love and esteem them. And I think they are greater than me. It's not about accolades. It's about options. And there's a reason we don't decree options for women in the church. And we have to look at that and say, why? And then also say, we are not at fault for realizing so late in life, as soon as we stepped out of our boxes, like Glennon Doyle has told us we could, there's a reason we go to the zoo and see the cheetah on the yard, in the cage. We feel sadness. Why? Because we know that they could be more. They were born to be more. But why would you ask for more when all of your needs are met?
Yeah. When you're safe, you're protected, you're fed,
And
you're cared for.
And your needs are much lower when you get married at 19, have never had a career, never had an education, and your virtue is based on saving yourself for one man. And now you've given it up. Good luck on the dating scene. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about the Mormon church right now.
Yeah.
The proclamation of the family hurts. It hurts gay and lesbian, bisexual Mormons. It hurts transgender, gender non-binary Mormons. It hurts women, and it also hurts men.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't
Absolutely
it?
hurts men.
Should only a woman nurture children?
No, absolutely.
Or should a husband nurture? Is it the woman's role to nurture a child, or is it both parents' job to nurture a child?
It's both parents'
Both
job, and
parents.
it's both parents' job to provide for that child.
Exactly.
And it's ridiculous the amount of pressure we put on men, like provide, have discretionary time, have discretionary income, and then also give up
Serving your
10% of your
callings
income.
and serving your callings
And do it well.
Yeah.
And be funny and be cool and show up and put up the chairs for state conference and take them down. And also don't upset your family. Also be a soccer coach.
Never look at porn.
Also never look at porn.
Yeah.
Never ask your wife to do anything outside of the standards of procreation. You know what I mean? Like all of it. And the pressure we put on men is equal and as sinister as the pressure we put on women. And it's just relegating people to a role that they may or may not ascribe to, and not saying like, it's fine to say this is the easiest way, but to say this is the only way you'll be happy.
Yeah.
That is what the family proclamation says. The Book of Mormon has a lot more latitude, but the family proclamation has been made doctrine since 1996. And it doesn't just say that your gender is integral to your salvation and that your sexual proclivities are integral to your salvation. It also says that this is the only way you'll ever be happy.
Really happy, truly happy.
Truly happy. And the rest is just the devil's spin.
Superficial, fake happiness.
And will never sustain. And we have not discovered that for ourselves until we truly have had our own money, our own financial success, and our ability to step away from
The traditional role.
dynamic of the husband provides, and we are lucky to be under his umbrella. And this is true for me, who has always been, I think I need to check my privilege since the time I was born, and I have been absolutely privileged and entitled my entire life, including undergoing a divorce and having the privilege to even have a side gig or a business. But even for myself, with all of that, I did not understand my intrinsic worth as a human being, not even just as a woman, as a human being, to God, to my fellow man, and to myself, until I had an independent financial success, which was through the business.
Yeah.
Can I just say, you both lived the family proclamation, and I don't get a sense that it brought you happiness. It didn't end for you because you weren't living it. You were living it, and it didn't end well. And now you're not living it. And I'm interested in you guys contrasting your happiness and joy living under the proclamation with your happiness and joy not living under it. Dre, what would you say about that?
Because you were living under it. You weren't an active believing Mormon, but you were absolutely
totally.
following that.
Stay-at-home mom,
You
having
didn't want this
kids.
path, if you know.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because I did think that this is how I'm going to be happy. Stay-at-home mom, raising my kids, going to the zoo, going to Thanksgiving Point, volunteering in the class, doing all those things. And of course, those things did bring me joy. but feeling limited to this is the box you have to be in, stay there. And so if I, have an idea of something that I want to do for my business, or something that I think I could make money, or something that I could do outside of those roles as wife and mother, then I felt shame and felt bad, but also felt longing. And it's a terrible way to live, to just stuff who you really are and keep it down, And now certainly it's embarrassing and lonely to be single and divorced and have that other failure under my belt. And
we're reframing it.
Yes. And it's not a failure, but I feel that way, but I feel hope. Maybe I'm not 100% happy right now, but I feel hope. I'm excited about where my life is going. And I'm excited to shed that idea that my value lies in simply being a wife and mother. And guess what? Not everybody's going to feel the same way as me. I have one of my dearest friends, she lives for being a mother. That brings her so much joy. And she has all these kids and she is so good. She does not have one bit of interest in running a business or doing any of the things that I do, but she is doing exactly what she wants to do and loves it. And it brings her immense joy. And so I'm not saying that all women, that you're not going to have joy if you stay at home raising your kids. That wasn't enough for me. And I'm excited that now I get to do both without feeling shame. And I'm working on that. I love being a mother. It is my source of life.
Such a good mom.
Oh, well, thank you. And you are too.
You're such a good mom.
And I love my kids. That is the number one thing in my life. And I'm also really excited to show them what their mom can do, because I think that she can maybe do some cool things.
So have you ever felt better about where you are in your life and what your potential is than now?
No, I'm really hopeful, and I haven't had this hope before. Well, maybe I did, but I feel it now, and I think I'm going to have a good life. We're going to have good lives, Heather.
What are you feeling, Heather?
Just deeply grateful for Dre. Just deeply, deeply grateful for just who she is as a human and who she is to the world and to her children and to her husband and to me, because she doesn't have an agenda, and I'm always going to be beholden to the agenda of Mormonism. I don't know how to break it.
You feel like you will be.
I feel like I will be right now. I feel
And
like I
right
will
now
be.
you are.
And when Mormons say mean things to me, it guts me.
Yeah.
Because I deserve it. And I feel sad because I don't really have hope. And I know this sounds so pathetic, but I am so committed to Beauty Lab being successful and to showing up here and talking about my story, not because I esteem anything to myself, but because I love Dre and I want her to have everything. So I want to just fall on the sword, whatever, because I believe in her hope and I believe in her vision and I believe in her ability to be true and not be, and I'm so deeply in it that I can only do it for her. I'm not doing it for myself. I don't know if that sounds so stupid, but Housewives I did because I believe in everybody. And sure, I'll be a clown on camera. I don't care. I'll show up and tell the world the ugly truth about who I am and how pathetic I am and how Mormon I am and how scared I am every day. But I will do it because it will bring something better And I believe in her ability to change the world and in her ability to pioneer a new path. And if I attach my wagon to her star, somehow I'll get there too.
I'm pretty sure you're the star.
But
Heather.
it seems counterintuitive, but that's just the martyrdom I identify under. That's just how I work. And so I listen to her, and I want only great things for her. And I am much more adamant about what she can accept in her life versus me. I'm like, oh, no, I'm still sleeping with clothes on one side of my bed. You know what I mean? But you should have a cleaning lady 24/7, you know? Like, it's just funny how we can project what we want on our children, on our friends, on our spouses, and just make sure that we keep what we want or need never rising to the surface, because then we have to address it and deal with it and be accountable for it. And I don't really want to yet.
But what's so funny to me, John, is like, because I knew you were going to say that because we talk about this constantly, you know, but
no surprises with Dre Nord.
It's like just hilarious because Heather, you are the one that is going to like do all the things. You're the one that's going to change the world. I mean, and I don't like, who's the freaking housewife? Guess who's been like, John's nice and throws me a bone and says both starring. I'm like, I was like in a weird scene, like behind Mary's hat in a, on a restaurant, you know, like
shocked in the,
just horrified, you know, and have got to have a cameo. I'm sorry, people are not listening to this episode of Mormon Stories because they hear Dre Nord is going to be on it. It's Heather Gay. You are compelling and have so much depth, and you are so wise and amazing. Like, and you don't, God bless you, you don't even realize it. And it is so obvious. Who of us is the real housewife, Heather? Who was the one that they sat down with and said, it really doesn't make sense for us to move forward with you, Dre? I'm like, why? Because I'm just the most boring person on earth? Yes. Like, not Heather, true. It is you. You are the one.
I have to jump in. This is rude, but I'm going to jump in because we've only got about 10, 15 minutes left for today.
Yeah.
First of all, I really hope I can have you back for one more hour.
I mean, there's not 4 parts to Lord of the Rings, John. Come on, man.
I want to talk about
Superman. Rocky 4 was a. I'm just kidding. It was great, actually.
I want to talk about the Real Housewives, but I don't want to rush out of this, and I have to drop into coach mode for a second. Heather, can I drop into coach mode for a second?
Coach me up.
Okay, so
Rudy.
And by the way, yeah, exactly. Your friendship is so gorgeous and beautiful, and you're both amazing. I think this is Wonder Twins. You guys are an amazing pair, and it's not one or the other; it's both. And this is the story of a really important friendship. But I'm going to drop into coach mode just for a second. I did get my PhD in psychology for a reason. So you talk about this beautiful moment where your gay friends convinced you that you didn't have to choose. That, you know, it was like you were thinking, I have to be either a perfect East Bench Relief Society president, Mormon, married mom, or I have to be an apostate, leave the church. And then they blew your mind by saying you can have both. Now, I'm not disagreeing with that because there are a lot of people who find a way to make Mormonism work on their own terms. There are people who, you know, are liberal and Mormon. There are people who are atheist and Mormon. There are people who do all the things they want. They drink coffee, they drink tea, and they're still Mormon. Like anything's possible in terms of belief or behavior and participation in the church. But there's one disservice that sometimes happens when you think you can have it all in terms of like, I can be an Orthodox Mormon and, you know, break the rules and not believe in the gay thing, but still believe in Joseph Smith. And you can't have all of it in this one sense that I'm about to say, is that there's a degree to which you do have to allow yourself to process the implications, the doctrinal and the theological implications from not just Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants and the priesthood and, you know, the leadership of the church. But it goes deeper than that. It goes back to God. It goes back to Jesus. It goes back to the Bible. You really do have to go through that gauntlet, that fire, that refiner's fire of inspecting it all. You have to let it all fall to the ground. You have to let Joseph Smith fall to the ground. You have to let the Book of Mormon fall to the ground. You have to let the Doctrine and Covenants, Thomas S. Monson, Gordon B. Hinckley, Russell M. Nelson, the priesthood, the temple, you have to let it all fall to the ground. Jesus, the Holy Ghost, it all has to fall to the ground. And then you have to do the process of inspecting it all and deciding what you're going to pick back up again. It's not that you're going to necessarily say goodbye to Jesus forever or necessarily say goodbye to God forever or the Holy Ghost or even Mormonism. But you, Heather, have to go through the process, like Dre did, honestly, of evaluating and deciding what you're going to pick up for you. And you've been too busy kicking ass, building a business, saving your family, staying alive, and bringing goodness to the world, employing all these women. You haven't given yourself the time to actually process it all. And you can't have it all. You can't still believe that God speaks to Russell M. Nelson and believe that God loves LGBTQ people and that the church is true and that there are all these suicides are happening. You have to deconstruct and then reconstruct. And you haven't had the time to do that yet, or you haven't wanted to do that yet, but you kind of need to do that. And I don't mean to be telling you what to do, but in my experience, that will be when you can disentangle yourself from some of these things that have you wrapped around the axle, because you're a little bit wrapped around the axle because you haven't processed some of this. I made you cry.
Well, yeah, you made me cry. Thank you. I mean, because if I had to put that all on the ground and then pick the pieces up, I would pick up all of it and it still wouldn't work. I would pick up that Russell M. Nelson talks directly to God and the priesthood is real and Joseph Smith is true and saw the first vision and the Book of Mormon is true and real and the gospel is true and God loves LGBTQ people and the community and gender isn't contingent on eternity and we just haven't figured out how to reconcile it all. And then I would also have to change so many things about how I'm living my life. But like, it's all real to me and it's all still true to me. And even though I know that like Alice in Wonderland, if I just eat this and get small enough to get through the door, to get to the other side, so much of who I am and what I believe and what I love and how I see the world and see my family and the people, every sibling I have and cousin I have, like, I don't think I can ever be there. I don't think I can ever put what I want in my basket and check out and go. I just can't. I believe all of it. And it doesn't reconcile with everything else I believe.
That's a really tortured way to live, and I'm sorry.
It's why I'm totally messed up. It's probably why I'm a housewife. It's the one good thing from being like,
do you feel tortured? Do you feel tortured?
I mean, I feel lucky. I think in terms of the world and the way people live, I am totally deeply privileged. And this is a freaking first world problem. I do. You guys, I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel tortured, but I have Netflix, I have food, totally. I have a bed, I have a Range Rover, I have a best friend, I have a couch with a podcast of people listening to me. Am I tortured? Of course. Is that my price to pay for all of the joy, not joy, but all of the benefits I have to my privileged freaking way of life? Maybe. And am I tortured because it's my own fault? Yeah, because I can't sift the wheat from the tares. And I love my faith. I love it. And I also am ashamed of it in so many ways. And I love my friends that are transgender, and I love my gay friends, and I love my parents, and I love my siblings, and I love the Book of Mormon, and I love the hymns, and I love my Relief Society president, and I love my visiting teachers, and I love my home teacher, and I love the gospel, but I also love booze and porn, and sex, and I love all of it, and I just want to I don't want my children to think they have to pick. I just want them to tap into their desires and be who they are. And like right now, anything I do is just to blaze a trail for my children.
And Dre.
And Dre, I want Dre to have all the good in life. And so she's blazing the trail for me, but I'm giving her all the frills, you know? I'm like the frills, like, what? Let's throw something your way. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So is that tortured? Yeah, I'm tortured. Is it a first world problem? 100%. Am I, I'm not living in Rwanda. I'm not living in Burundi. You know what I mean? I'm not living
totally
in
know what you're
Central
saying, Heather.
African Republic where nobody even stops at a stoplight. You know what I mean? I'm speaking what my reality is, but I still have a sense of who I am in the grand scheme of the world and of eternity. And it seems to me like I'm not that important.
And I'm going to ask you to consider the idea that you'll be able to give Dre even more, and you'll be able to give your kids even more, and you'll be able to help even more people when you are able to choose yourself first and put yourself first and stand up and say the Mormon way of the woman sacrificing and self-sabotaging for the benefit of others, the giving tree where you end up a stump, that dies with me in this generation. And the moment that you stand up and say, I'm going to put myself first, you'll be able to give more to others than you could ever imagine at that moment. Not to put the pressure on you.
I mean, I'm in therapy, but like even you saying that, I was like, I want to be the freaking stump, man. I want to be the stump.
Well, we have been taught that she who suffers most wins, that it's the martyrdom of women. And it is really, really deep in our culture. And, that's a tough one to shake, Heather. But think about when we do put ourselves on the list.
It's so much fun.
It feels really good.
What do you mean? Put yourself on the list. What do you mean?
Like we talk about, yeah, I know. We talk about a lot, like how women don't put themselves on the list. They don't, like, it's everyone else's needs first. And
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Where am I at on that? Like, I don't even put myself on the triangle.
But I think but recently Heather and I had an experience where we like kind of put ourselves on the list and we're like, no, we're going to do this thing for ourselves. And it was like the best thing. And it was
exhilarating.
So great. And like, we talked about it for days and we're like, can you believe that? Like, we actually like said, okay, kids, family, everyone, work.
We
like
got Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's
like
Amsterdam.
we're doing something for ourselves and we're not going to feel bad about it. And it's like, I put gas in my tank. I'm fine for like 3 years probably.
Put gas in my tank. We had like basically a day where we just
had fun.
Yeah, we kind of, I would say we indulged the spoils of war. We work really, really hard. We don't spend ever. We are bootstrappers. We have never taken out a business loan for our business. We have never taken a dollar from investors other than our husbands. Who just
we
to be
back.
fair to women around the world, this was a privileged position that we were in to be able to develop a business. This is not just by, grit. And that has to be said. But we just felt our power for just like a moment,
Mm-hmm. And it was so fun.
It felt so good.
Did you go out to eat?
Did we go out to eat?
Did you get a bottle of wine? What'd you do?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everything. And we like went shopping.
Ice cream? Was there Ben and Jerry's?
We bought whatever we wanted. We bought it for our friends. And we just felt it. I mean, we just are so like whenever anything happens, we put it back into the business. We put it back into our employees. We put it, we really believe in the law of consecration,
Mm-hmm. And giving
to our communities and our
back,
families.
Yeah. And yeah, so it was like that one time we were like, we're gonna just like,
She like booked like the Uber XL. She's like, I'm taking care of my girl. And we had first class tickets. And we're just like, we just gave ourselves just a taste of, you know,
Pampering, self-care.
yeah, just
I mean,
like,
to an
just kind of
extreme. It was-
indulgence, like rich girls on the town and with no thought of tomorrow. Eat,
Yeah.
drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you may die. And we felt that, and we felt it. Like, you know, we did it and we felt it.
It sounds like totally dumb and like just this,
but we never do that.
it was more about the act of like doing something for ourselves and like
and
enjoying.
DGAF about where any, and we'd already, you
Don't
know,
give a fetch. Just for those who don't know, don't give a fetch.
you know, we had arranged for our kids. What happened is we had a flight and we missed our flight. And so instead of just going back home and doing all the things we needed to be doing and like, oh, this will give me a chance to clean out our sock drawer or whatever, we just said, we're supposed to be out of town. We're going to be out of town today.
Yeah.
And let's live
was just so
high
fun.
on the hog. And it was wonderful.
Where
and
were you?
Well, we were here.
Oh, you're here. Staycation.
Yeah.
It was a staycation. It was 8 hours of like us just enjoying how hard we've worked, really.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It was so fun. And it was, we talked about it later. We kind of did a little evaluation like,
Why are we so happy right now?
yeah, why do we feel like we could
Because you feel like
world
men.
on a string? We feel like
Because you
men.
get to do
No,
what
we
men
literally
get to
like,
do.
is this what men feel like? It's so awesome.
Imagine just waking up and knowing your life is always your life, your name is always your name, and your future is defined by you. Women wake up and none of that has been told to us. I want my daughters, I tell my daughters, like Ashley, my 17-year-old said, marriage is like third standard. I'm always going to be Ashley Gay. And I want to make her proud to have that name. I don't want to make her like write the name of another man in cursive and like lose her identity. People still can't even connect with me because I served my mission as a different name. I went to college as a different name. And then I married a man and adopted his name. And then I got divorced. And like, he could legally, he wanted me to lose his name, you know? And I was like, I'm not going to do that to my kids. We had these children under this name, you know, and I gave up everything. So I'm going to keep the name. Not because I care. I want to be Heather Gay, although I'm proud to be, but because that's my children's name, you know?
And I think your kids are really proud to have your name.
I think they are proud to be. We're all in this together, but we don't wake up knowing that what we do is going to be with us forever. We wake up, what we do is going to help us attach ourselves to the right star for our wagon to get to heaven. You know?
But it's changing.
We're changing it. We're trailblazers, man.
Yep.
We're blazing a new trail
You just
for
need a high five,
ourselves
right?
and
You
our
need a
children.
high five right now. You need to high five each other.
And for our gay, transgender brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is it's time to put Heather and Dre first on the list. It's time to put Gay and Dre on the list. Huh?
Yep.
Yes.
Are you guys putting yourselves on the list?
Oh, we did a couple
We
weeks
did a
ago.
couple
It was
weeks
so
ago.
fun.
But I mean,
Yeah.
metaphorically in life, you're going to put
Yeah.
yourselves on the list.
It's hard as a mom, to be fair. Like, I think that we really will be on the list, but we'll be underneath our children. We'll be number 3 and 4.
I'm good with that though.
Yeah, I'm great with that.
good
That's
with
that's why we had children, you know, to raise them and to love them and to put them first. And there is absolute nobility in that. And my youngest is 13. Your youngest is 6. So I've got, 7 years on her, but I went out with a guy and he just said, so your youngest is 13. So you got you got like 5 more years and then you can like sail around the world with me. And I just thought,
Oh my gosh.
like,
That's cool.
yeah, it was just like, I guess in terms of child support, like at 18, like you don't write the check anymore. But as a mom, don't you feel like you're always a mom? Your mom's
Yeah,
still your mom.
totally.
My mom's still my mom.
I
and
still talk to my mom.
motherhood
all the
is
time, yeah.
perpetual. It's the perpetual endowment.
Yeah.
But just saying that was like terrifying, but cool. I thought, could I just say, Annabelle, you're 18. Here's $100,000 and I'm going to sail around the
Peace
world with a foreign
With Pierre,
man,
with Pierre.
whose last name
With
I don't
Jacques.
want to know.
With
Yeah.
Jacques, with Pierre.
And yeah,
Totally.
Yeah. One of my favorite things I ever learned from Oprah one of our patron saints.
Yes.
You
Greetings,
know,
Oprah.
in Christianity and Mormonism, we're taught lose yourself, become the giving tree, become that stump. But we have so much addiction, self-medication, depression, and suicide. That's not the way. What Oprah says is you can't give what you don't have. So what you do is you put yourself on the list first. You get healthy, you get strong, you get capable, you get resources, and then you've got a surplus to bless the lives of others. And that's one of the things I love most about you two. Just in that first episode or second episode, whatever, you've got all these people you've employed. You've got all these women that you're helping feel better about themselves, but you've got all these mothers, these young women, mothers, who not only have you given them jobs, employment, but you're also modeling for them self-empowerment and strength. Because you guys have invested in yourself, now you're able to give to others. And that's what you guys are doing. And it's only going to grow now. It's only going to grow.
Yeah.
So keep investing in yourselves.
We will. I'm going to make sure that Heather does it.
Yeah, none of this doing it for Dre. Don't do it for Dre. Do it for Heather.
It's not just Dre, it's the entire LGBTQIA+ community.
Start with Heather. How about start with Heather?
These are my trailblazers that have more courage, and same with Dre. Like, I just feel like these people have more courage to own who they are and to say it out loud than I've ever had. Like, I'm, crumbling and weeping, and I'm just saying, I don't know if the church is true. That's all I'm saying, and I can barely drag myself out of here. Imagine if I had to say, I love women, and
I feel like, or
I'm leaving
a man
my marriage,
or I'm a man on the inside. Yeah,
I'm a man, and I've never felt in my body.
Yeah.
These are the people that I herald and respect and want to honor, and that's why I have to speak out against some of the doctrines of the church, because they don't just eclipse me from the plan of happiness, they eclipse the people I love.
Yeah. And all I'm going to say, and I just want to end with this thought myself, is that I don't care what you believe about Joseph Smith, Heather Gay. I don't care what you think about the Book of Mormon. I don't care if you're in or out of the church. What I would love to see is for you to allow yourself to put yourself first and to care about yourself and to invest in yourself. Because I think when our tide rises individually, it lifts all ships, and you'll just have, you'll be healthier, and you'll be able to even be more of a blessing than you already have been to your daughters, to your employees, to the LGBT community, etc. If the only thing I'll ask you to lose from your Mormon background is this sort of subservient, I don't matter, self-sacrificing, self-sabotaging thing that we put on our women and men, frankly. That's the only thing that I'm hoping that I feel invested in you reconsidering.
I am committed to that, and I feel like Dre is like equally committed to that. Like
I'm so glad you guys found each other.
Oh, same. We were going to find each other, though. Meant to
I've seen that smile somewhere before.
I've heard that voice before.
It seems we've talked like. Did you guys know each other in the pre-existence? Did you?
Probably.
Premortal existence. I feel like we promised each other we'd find each other,
totally.
and figure it out together. And I'm so deeply grateful. And I was listening back to our podcast when I was just like, I felt sad, but like I was drawn to Elsha and drawn to her. And I'm so grateful. It wasn't out of superiority as much as just chemistry,
Yep. Gay and Dre.
Gay and Dre. Gosh dang it.
And you and me can do anything.
But mostly
me.
Dun, dun, dun.
Did you love Book of Mormon?
Loved it. I've seen it 3 times.
I've seen it 4 times.
I've only seen
London,
it
Salt
once.
Lake, New York.
Yeah.
Loved it, too.
All right. So here's the deal. I want to have you guys back, but we don't have to do it immediately. I want to get these gosh darn episodes out.
Okay. Why don't you ask your viewers, and if they, by popular demand, will come back and talk all things Housewives. As soon as the season's ended, I can talk all things Housewives.
Okay. So
that's a month away.
Whenever we do that, we'll do that. But I am just over the moon thrilled with what we talked about today, with telling your stories, with your vulnerability, with your power, with your wisdom, with your grace, with your beauty. I am just like, I feel better about the world because I met Gay and Dre. I feel better about the world.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I do.
I feel devastated.
It's rough, though. I mean,
I'm going to crawl out of your army, crawl out.
Do you regret it, Dre? Do you regret
No.
doing this interview?
Oh, of course not. No. I've been dreaming. I never thought I would be on Mormon Stories. I'm so excited.
Heather, you'll someday.
I'm trying not to regret anything. I'm trying to live in the moment and embrace the moment and be grateful for the people that are interested in anything I have to say. And, you know, the fact that this is Dre's thing is like, gives me more joy than anything. And I don't regret it. And absolutely not. I'm thrilled. And I am grateful to you and grateful to this forum and grateful to your audience, really.
Yeah.
They're good,
really good community.
Amazing, perceptive people that are honest and courageous enough to dig deep, which I've never been.
All right, plug all the stuff. Let's end by you plugging all the stuff. Your business, the show, whatever else you want to plug.
Yeah, Beauty Lab and Laser. Check
We
us out.
exist
Is that the
because women want us to exist and men want us to exist. That's why we're here.
Our Instagram is at beauty.lab.laser. It's amazing, and it's run by Heather. So
we would really like to say to anyone that has track marks from intravenous drug use, anyone that has self-harm scars, no strings attached, no questions asked. You just call and say, I want to book self-harm scar treatment or drug scar treatment. Mm-hmm. And our staff is equipped to make it as sensitive and as easy and seamless as possible. You show up, you know, no confetti comes out of the clouds. You know what I mean? You just go back, you have your appointment, and it is you'll be treated by the most empathetic, wonderful humans that are expertly skilled.
And people can find information about the foundation, about the scar treatment as well at beautylablaser.com. And then there's a link just on the homepage for Don't Leave. And we are a 501c3. Is that
we're a 501c3.
So we have people donating all the time. If anybody wants to donate, that just helps to offset the cost of the laser treatments for us.
Does the nonprofit have a website?
It's just a link to our website.
Yeah, it's a link on Beauty Lab Laser. Yeah, but we do accept donations and we personally contribute to it just so we can offset the cost of the employees and the services. But we are going to offer free scar treatment in perpetuity. We have.
And remind our listeners what you offer to women and men and trans people, just your basic services, just so they know. If you need what?
Oh, laser hair removal, skincare, injections, cosmetic injections, and like all of the
like
kind
Botox?
of
Botox, lip filler, cheek filler. We treat cleft palates. We treat dog scars. We treat receding chins. We treat women that don't want to wear makeup and want contoured cheekbones.
Hyperhidrosis.
For excessive sweating of the armpits, palms, feet.
You already said hair removal, right?
Yeah, hair removal is big for a lot of our transgender customers because, it's just it matters if you're male to female or female to male, but we're here for it. It's a wonderful staff. We are a facility that the lab loves you. That's like what we lead with. And we are beauty by the people. We're all in this together. And we love our beauty labbers. We deeply love them. They have given us life.
Yep. And then people can watch Heather.
Oh, there is a show, right? Isn't there a show? Are you on a show?
Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, airing on
Wednesday nights at 11 p.m. if you have Xfinity.
Not Utah. Utah time?
BravoTV.
Utah time, 11 p.m. But you can watch it streaming on the Xfinity app or like through BravoTV. But yeah, I'm on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And
how many more episodes?
I'm not positive. I think there's 7 more episodes.
So 13 total maybe? Okay.
Yeah.
So is there more fun to be seen?
Yeah. It's entertainment and it's fun. And these are women that are putting their lives out there. And I'm certainly putting my life out there for good or bad. And I'm open to the criticisms and the accolades. And they're equal, they're equal. And I believe in the gospel. So I believe that there's opposition in all things. So I am here for the love and I'm here for the hate. And the hate's easier to believe, but the love feels so much better, Yeah.
So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Gay and Dre.
And I mean, the fact that John DeLynn is watching Real Housewives and Margie, it's just like, what? I thought you were doing, sorry, okay. But see, Dre, that's the thing. Is like I have to do it like this.
know,
If I'm
I
Get it
doing
right.
so
You gotta get it right one time. No, get it right one time.
I'm telling you guys, okay,
Get it
this
right.
is it.
One.
But you can't you can't look at me and you can't count.
I'm sorry, I
It's
can't
like,
not do it.
It's
so.
like a dancer going, and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. Like you,
You
just
know
gotta
I'm
like
not
just come on,
coordinated.
just bring
Yin
it.
and
Just
yang.
okay. Just don't look at me. Okay, I got the count wrong. It's fine. Let's do our thing. We got this.
Okay.
Yes.
We did it.
And Dre. Drether.
Drether, Gay and Dre. I want to lead with Gay.
I don't want you guys to leave, but you got to go.
We
All
do,
right.
yes.
Life
I
and
do.
children. But if by popular demand, if your viewers want to hear us come back, we are here to
You'll come
riff
back?
with
Or
you.
You come
just
back one
Heather
more?
also.
Yeah,
But
I won't come back without
her.
Dre ever. Mostly me.
All right, we'll have you back for sure. That's a guarantee. All right.
right.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
You are
Thank you
amazing. Thanks
so
for
much.
having us. It's been an honor.
All right, listeners, viewers, you guys are awesome. We love you. Thanks for your support. Donate to mormonstories.org to keep this alive. Become a monthly donor. Thank you to all who make this possible. Have a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. Email us, share this everywhere. Give us positive reviews on all the places. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We just love your support. We need your support. And again, your donations to the Open Stories Foundation will allow us to continue into 2021 if you'll support us. So thank you so much. We love you. Give us your feedback. Email us. Let us know if you want to come on or if you know someone that should come on and comment on the blog, and only positive things. So you can comment on YouTube, Facebook, but only write good things. If you have criticisms,
Scream into your pillow.
send them to johndelin2nd@gmail.com and he'll respond. When it's time. I just sent them to a wormhole. Anyway,
Perfect.
That's smart. That's where they should go.
yeah, where no one's going to pay attention or listen.
Yeah.
But don't send the hate. We don't need the hate. The world needs more love, less hate. Love you guys. Take care. And again, Gay and Dre, keep tearing it up.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's been a
Cathartic.
cathartic
Put
and
yourselves
a
on the
dream
list.
come
Keep
true.
putting yourselves on the list.
Appreciate it.
I'm afraid for the world in a good way when you guys just keep gaining your power.
That was like a tagline. You're afraid for the world in a good way for Gay and Dre. It all
Yes.
rhymes.
Yep.
All
It's a
right.
rap. You spitting lines. What's happening?
All right, guys, take care. Love you. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Love you too.
All right.